My name is Molly, and I'm 32 years old. I'm married to Justin, who is 35 and works in an office. I work as a freelance fashion designer from home. My career started with many small, exciting projects, but it wasn't until I landed a significant project with a substantial paycheck that things really changed. This opportunity allowed Justin and me to move into a luxurious high-rise apartment, something I had always wanted. Since I was the one who had dreamed of living in such a place, I agreed to cover the monthly rent myself. Justin was thrilled about the new apartment, and I thought our future together looked bright. I couldn't have anticipated what was about to happen next. One day, Justin brought his 65-year-old mother, Betty, to our place. Her husband had passed away 3 years ago, and she had been living alone since then. "Hi, Molly," Betty greeted me. "Hi, Betty, it's been a while. What's going on?" "Well," Justin began awkwardly, "she wants to move in with us." "Why?" I asked, surprised. Justin explained that Betty's house was deteriorating, and she wanted to move to a better place. She didn't have much money, so she hoped to stay with us temporarily. I understood the situation but wasn't thrilled about it. Our apartment was a haven for just the two of us, and Betty, whom I barely knew, felt like a stranger. I was reluctant to have her join us. "Please," Justin said, taking my hands. "Her house is falling apart. I promise I'll urge her to find a smaller, newer place as soon as possible." Reluctantly, I agreed, thinking it would only be for a short while. A month later, Betty moved in. "Thank you so much for letting me stay in this wonderful apartment," she said. "No problem," I replied with a forced smile. "Please make yourself at home." But soon after settling in, Betty approached me with an unexpected request. "Sorry to dive right in, but may I borrow some money?" I was taken aback. As soon as she had unpacked her things, she was asking me for money. I was taken aback by Betty's directness. "I've been seeing the doctor a lot lately, and it's been costing me money. I just need a little bit, please." "How much are you asking for?" I inquired. "Around $300 for now," she said. Given her age, it wasn't surprising that she might be facing health issues, and I could understand that medical expenses could add up quickly. I reached into my purse, found $650, and handed it to her. Then, one day, Justin came to me with a request. I was unsettled, fearing it might be related to Betty. "You know, we should get a new car," he said. I was so surprised that I nearly fell out of my chair. "What do you mean? We just bought a car 2 years ago." "Well, it's too small," Justin explained. I couldn't understand why the size of the car mattered. It was sufficient for the two of us, or 3 if you counted Betty. Why did the size need to change? "My mom doesn't like it," Justin added. I was baffled. Why was Betty complaining about a car that wasn't hers? "She wants a more luxurious car, like a Mercedes," Justin said. I was completely lost. Changing cars for such a trivial reason seemed unreasonable. Besides, could Betty even drive? "I'm not buying an expensive car. Tell her it's not happening," I said firmly. At the time, it was clear to me that this request made no sense. Betty's complaints about the car seemed to never end, and soon she came to me again, asking for money. "My medical bills have become more expensive, and I'm falling behind on payments. Could you help me out again?" she pleaded. "Should I be concerned about your health?" I asked, worried. Betty hesitated before responding. "Not really. I'm just feeling a bit depressed and having trouble sleeping. The therapist is quite costly. I'm really sorry for asking." "I understand. How much do you need this time?" I asked. "About $1,000, she said. $1,000. I was taken aback. The amount seemed excessive for therapy, though I wasn't well versed in the costs. "I'm sorry," I said, "but my insurance only covers a limited number of sessions fully, and after that, I have to pay half of the charges." "I see," Betty replied. "I'll get it by tomorrow." Despite my shock at the amount, I tried to rationalize it, thinking perhaps there were high costs associated with the therapy. Even after that, Betty continued to find reasons to borrow more money, citing medical bills and transportation costs for visiting sick friends. By the time I realized, the total amount she had borrowed had reached $5,000. Although my job was going well, I was becoming increasingly frustrated. That's when I noticed something strange. One day, I couldn't help but peek into Betty's room. To my shock, I found designer bags and wallets neatly displayed on a shelf. I was stunned. How could she afford such luxurious items when she claimed to be struggling financially? She had borrowed so much money from me. yet her room was filled with expensive goods. I grew increasingly suspicious of the medical bills she'd been asking for. A month later, Betty approached me again, asking for more money with no hint of remorse. "Can you please wait?" she said casually. I decided it was time to confront her. I called Justin, who seemed unaware of the situation. "I need to ask you about Betty," I said. "What exactly is she using the money for?" "What's going on, Molly?" Justin asked, clearly confused. Betty mumbled something about therapy sessions and prescriptions, but I pressed further. "And what about the designer clothes, bags, and other items? Are you really seeing a therapist?" "Of course," Betty replied, but her hesitation was clear. "If that's the case, show me the receipts. You must have them, right?" I demanded. Cornered by my questioning, Betty was at a loss for words. It became evident that she wasn't using the money for her well-being, but for something else entirely. Justin, still puzzled, asked, "Wait, what are you guys talking about?" "Betty has been spending the money she borrowed from me, more than $5,000, on luxury items," I explained. "Even so, you're being too aggressive. Can you talk to her more gently?" Justin said, his loyalty clearly lying with his mother. In other words, he was a mama's boy. "I don't have receipts," Betty admitted. "I have been shopping and dining out with friends." I was taken aback. "You seem so relaxed despite claiming to be broke. You didn't seem depressed at all. If you've been lying, you need to pay me back immediately." Betty's eyes were full of desperation. "I can't come up with that amount right away." Frustrated, I pointed to the designer items in her room. "Sell all of those things. If you can't, then move out." Justin, ever the defender, intervened. "Hey, you're being unfair. She deserves a little luxury too." "I wouldn't call it luxury," I shot back. "More than $5,000 has been squandered. This feels like a scam." Justin countered, "You're being disrespectful. Just because you're paying the rent doesn't give you the right to be so arrogant." "If you're unhappy, then you can leave," he said. "What?" I was incredulous. I was reaching my boiling point. Steam seemed about to burst from my ears as I glared at him. "Did I say anything wrong? You're the one who brought Betty here in the first place. You do nothing but lounge around at home. Thanks to you, I'm stuck living with this mess. You're so condescending, it's infuriating." "Get out now," I snapped. Rage consumed me. "Fine. Don't regret this," Justin said, grabbing only the essentials and leaving the apartment. I found a new place quickly. As a remote worker, I could do my job from anywhere. I wasn't fixated on living in a high-rise as long as my new home was comfortable. So now, what was next? I had no intention of returning to that place. I had been covering the rent on my own, and I assumed Justin had no interest in taking over. Even if he wanted to, his paycheck wouldn't be enough to cover it. My income far exceeded his. I consulted with a realtor who had assisted me before. I explained that, due to personal reasons, it had become very difficult to manage the monthly rent. Although I could technically afford it, I chose to downplay my situation. "I'm sorry to hear that. What would you like to do?" the realtor asked. I asked for his help with the situation. One day, while I was working, I received a call from Justin. "What's going on?" I answered, puzzled. "Why didn't you tell me?" Justin demanded. "I was told to move out because the lease was canceled." "Yes, I asked the property agent to break the lease," I explained. "Since I don't live there anymore, I don't see why I should continue paying the rent." "But my mom and I still live there," Justin protested. I was stunned. "What? That's absurd. I don't live there, so why should I keep covering the apartment? If you're in trouble, you should talk to your mom and maybe sell some of her things to raise the money," I suggested. I was incredulous and frustrated. It seemed Justin's sense of entitlement had no bounds. I spoke with a hint of sarcasm. "Well, you were the one who wanted to live in a high-rise. If you're not ready to move, why don't you take over the lease yourself?" "Oh wait, you probably can't afford it with your salary." Justin seemed at a loss for words. "You know, you should be able to manage a modest apartment. So go ahead and deal with it. Move in with your mom." "Are you kidding me?" I retorted. "My mom has already used up her savings from selling her house. I don't have any extra funds myself. How do you expect me to find a new place?" "That's not my problem," he replied. I couldn't understand how he still had no savings when he had been relying on my income. The entitlement and irresponsibility of both him and his mother were astounding. "You've brought this upon yourselves with your foolishness," I said. "From now on, figure it out on your own." "Are you saying we should be homeless? You're still my wife," Justin pleaded. I've told you. Figure it out elsewhere. I'm done with this. Goodbye. I hung up the phone. A few minutes later, my phone rang again. It was Betty. Mally, I'm really sorry, she said, her voice trembling. I will pay you back, so please don't kick us out. Her tearful plea surprised and saddened me. I didn't want to lecture her, but I felt I needed to explain. You should live within your means. If you only have a small retirement income, you should adjust your lifestyle accordingly. If you want a higher standard of living, you need to work for it. I knew the harsh reality as a freelancer. If I wanted a certain quality of life, I had to work hard and earn it rather than relying on others. I understand, Betty said. I'm sorry. Please don't let us end up on the street. I'm sorry, I replied, my voice softening. But you need to manage your finances better. The apartment had already been leased to someone else. You really need to move out, I told Betty coldly. This is a matter of regulation. I ended the call with finality. Later, the realtor informed me that Justin and Betty had pleaded with him to keep the lease, but he told them that a new tenant was moving in soon and they had to leave. Even if they had stayed, Justin's salary would have been swallowed up by the rent, leaving them unable to afford anything else. It was absurd for them to expect me to continue supporting their living situation while Justin relied on me. His outbursts had pushed things past the point of no return. I was frustrated and resolved that this was the end. Justin and Betty were left without an apartment and were moving from one motel to another because they couldn't afford the broker's fee or deposit, and no one was willing to be their guarantor. Betty had worked only briefly, so her Social Security payments were minimal, and they were struggling even to eat. I felt they had brought this upon themselves. On my end, I secured another major project and became more financially stable. Looking back on our marriage, I realized that depending solely on a partner, financially or otherwise, is unsustainable. It leads to significant pain when things fall apart. Justin and I separated for a while and eventually divorced. Our feelings had cooled, and there was no reason to stay together. Now that we're estranged, I feel a sense of relief. If I were to marry again, I'd be more discerning. The divorce taught me valuable lessons about life and relationships, and I plan to take my time finding the right partner.
Indeed, is it true that you've acquired a house? If so, I'd be interested in living with you. Unexpectedly, my mother-in-law started uttering such an absurd proposition over the phone. She must have caught wind of our recent home purchase from my husband. I could discern my sister-in-law's amused chuckles in the background. Does she believe her laughter can go unnoticed? Honestly, I have no desire to reside with my mother-in-law and the others. I thought my husband shared the same sentiment. However, the fact that they've been informed about our new house. Could it be that they're assuming we'll be living together? The idea that my beloved husband might be in cahoots with them fills me with a bit of apprehension. Yet, I have no intention of yielding to their wishes. Are they trying to manipulate me? If that's their game, I'll reverse the roles. Reflecting on all my past tribulations, I'd pledged revenge against them. I am Kate Thompson, 30 years old, working as an ordinary employee at a major financial corporation. I married my husband Joe 3 years ago, and though we don't have children yet, there's a valid reason for that, a decision we both took seriously. Joe and I are fully committed to our careers, toiling daily with the aim of advancing. Once our professional lives stabilize, we plan to build our own home and create a stable environment for raising children. We've agreed to revisit the topic of having kids once our careers settle down. This was a decision we made earnestly, sharing our genuine feelings and thoughts. We do aspire to have children eventually, and now as we prepare for that, I find myself recalling all my past struggles. Then one day, I successfully executed a well-planned project at work, and my promotion was officially confirmed. While my salary was already sufficient, the promotion brought even more comfort to our lives. On the other hand, Joe, although not promoted, received a substantial salary increase due to his years of service. With both our incomes on the rise, I felt it was time to turn our long-held dream into reality, so I broached the topic with Joe. Joe, I want to talk to you. Over the past year, both of us have had stable incomes. I think it might be time to consider getting our own home. What do you think? Oh, is it time already? From his excited voice, I could tell Joe was thrilled. Actually, I've been thinking about it too, but since I haven't been promoted yet, I felt a bit hesitant to bring it up. Don't worry about that. It's not like only one of us needs to earn money. I was thinking it might be okay to build our home in my name. Really? Well, you do earn more now. If you're okay with it, let's build our home in your name. All right, let's proceed with that. Let's go see some model houses on our next day off. Sounds great, let's go. We shouldn't miss this opportunity. I really feel grateful for choosing Joe at times like this, as we share the same values. The following week, we made an appointment to view model homes as planned. We looked at various types of houses, expanding our vision for our own home. On weekends, we began creating simple floor plans together, researching online. During a recent visit to a construction company, they suggested that instead of leaving everything to them, it's better if we create our own image for a more satisfying home. So Joe and I started building that image. However, neither of us has much knowledge of architecture or design, and even with research, it takes time to put it into practice. While taking breaks, we continued working, and then the doorbell rang. I thought it was a delivery, but when I opened the door, my mother-in-law was standing there unexpectedly. "Huh, Mother? What brings you here so suddenly like this?" My mother-in-law sometimes visits our place without notice. She glared at me and, without a word, took off her shoes and went into the house on her own. I near Joe, surprised by his mother's call, showed a startled reaction. "What's up? Did you have some business around here?" To Joe's question, his mother looked a bit perplexed. "Yes, I told Kate about it over the phone a little while ago, but it seems Joe didn't know." "I see. Maybe Kate forgot to tell me. Seems like it, Joe, even though he's still young, has a terrible memory." "That's not true, Mom. It's not forgetfulness. Kate is incredibly busy with work, and at the same time, she takes care of the household. Her mind is always full of things to do. You're such a kind boy, Joe. If your late father were here, he definitely wouldn't have forgiven that. I really respect Kate from the bottom of my heart. So, Mom, why did you come here today?" To Joe's question, his mother smiled contentedly. Then she slowly took out a travel brochure from her bag, spread a page with a post-it note on the table, and showed it. "Listen, Joe, I've always wanted to go to Niagara Falls. Won't you take me, please?" My mother-in-law began to say such things excitedly out of the blue. Caught off guard by the sudden request, both Joe and I were left staring at her, mouths agape. My mother-in-law, relentless, kept pressing Joe, who was clearly flustered. "Come on, Joe, you agree, right? Think of it as a way to show filial piety." "Wait a minute, Mom. I'm in trouble if you suddenly say you want to go on a trip. Though you can come too, actually. I was thinking of going with Claire, but if Joe wants to go, I'm delighted to turn it into a family trip. Claire is Joe's sister." "What are you talking about? Kate is here, and I can't get time off from work. But it's strange for me to pay for a trip for you and my sister, right?" "Not strange at all. Spending money for the family is a wonderful thing, don't you think so, Kate?" Suddenly turning to me, my mother-in-law sought my agreement. Though shaken, I firmly expressed my opinion to her. Using one's own money for family isn't bad, but I think imposing it on others is different. "What do you mean by that? Are you saying I'm trying to extort travel expenses from Joe?" "I didn't mean to say it in such a harsh way, but listening to you, it sounded like you just wanted us to pay for the trip, Katie. That's terrible. I had no such intention, but you're making me out to be the villain in front of Joe. I'm so shocked." "That's not. I didn't mean to call you a villain. I just answered honestly to what was asked." Okay, no need for excuses, Kate. Why are you so heartless? You must not like me, do you?" My mother-in-law, visibly upset, glared at me with icy cold eyes. It always turns out like this when she comes over. She always finds some reason to demand money and then squanders it with Claire, Joe's sister. Spending money for the family sounds nice, but what my mother-in-law does is practically extortion. The situation is entirely different when Joe gives the money out of kindness, no matter that they're family. I never really liked Joe's mother and sister. According to Joe, his mother and sister became selfish after his father passed away. Joe's father died when he was in high school, and since then, they have lived as a trio. With his strict father alive, he watched over the finances. But with his departure, there was no one to stop them, and they even freely spent the life insurance money. Also, since Claire works part-time and not as a full-time employee, her salary is low, and their life is always on the edge. So this is why she regularly visits our house, making excuses like life is tough, or I want to relax and travel somewhere, to extort money from Joe. Before marrying Joe, it seemed he was at the mercy of his mother and her demands. After his father's death, a sense of dependence for being cared for by his mother had bound Joe. However, since marrying me, Joe seems to be gradually realizing their true nature. Even when repeatedly asked for money, recently he's been trying hard to refuse. For Joe, that's quite a growth. Moreover, he has recently become able to speak back firmly to his mother. To my mother-in-law's spiteful words like, "You don't like me, do you?" Or "Why should I?" For such an uncharming daughter-in-law, Joe responded clearly, "Just because you're my mother doesn't mean you can speak badly of Kate. Didn't Kate just answer what you asked her?" "Mom, you're taking Kate's side." "What are you talking about?" "I think you're in the wrong here, Mom." "That's so unfair. Surely Kate must have poisoned your mind against me, poor thing. You were such a kind child before we got married." "I'm telling you, that's not it. I'm saying this because I think so." Joe's firm response surprised my mother-in-law, who was not used to being talked back to like that. With a frustrated look, by biting her lower lip, she said, "Fine," and left. "Kate, I'm sorry. I'd always make you feel uncomfortable." "No, it's okay. You stood up for us this time. Once we build our own home, we'll be further away. Let's not interact with Mom and them." "Then yeah, that would be a relief. If you're okay with it, Joe, I'm grateful." The area we're considering for our new home is quite far from our current apartment, improving the convenience for both of our workplaces. Our current apartment is about 5 train stations away from Joe's parental home, but the new house will be 3 times farther and require transfers. The route from the station is also complex, so if we don't give them the address, they won't be able to find our new home. It's a good chance to cleanly break off our relationship with my mother-in-law. Later, we submitted our imagined floor plan to the construction company, and the construction started 2 months later. After about half a year, our $500,000 dream home was completed. We managed to squeeze some time from our busy work schedules to pack a few days before the move. I received a call from my mother-in-law on my smartphone. "Busy packing." I turned on the speaker and answered the phone. "Hello," I said, and my mother-in-law started speaking in an unusually high-pitched voice. "Kate, when are you moving? You bought a house, right? I want to live with you." Suddenly, on the phone, my mother-in-law began to say such an outrageous thing. She must have heard about our new home purchase from Joe. I could hear Claire, my sister-in-law, chuckling in the background. "That's great. We can make Kate work for us every day, Mom. You came up with a good idea," said Claire. Do they think their words aren't reaching me? It's clear they plan to piggyback on our move. I imagine them planning to use us for an easy life, honestly. I have no intention of living with them. I thought Joe felt the same. But telling them about the new house, could it be that they're assuming we'll live together? The thought that my beloved Joe might be in league with them fills me with a bit of fear. But I have no intention of letting them have their way. They're probably trying to use me, right? If that's the case, I'll turn it around and use them. I told them the date of our move. Then my mother-in-law and Claire said, "We'll come to the apartment in the afternoon on that day. Take us with you in the car and arrange the movers for us too." They hung up after making their demands. But of course, I have no intention of complying. For now, I'll check the facts with Joe. As I was about to go and tell Joe this, he was already standing behind me. "Joe, you were there. I came to say we should take a break. But was that Mom on the phone just now?" "Ah, yes. I was going to talk to you about it too. Why did you tell your mother about our new home?" "It's not like that. Actually, when Mom came over last time, she seems to have seen the floor plan of our new house. She kept pestering me about it every day, so Kate, I'm really sorry. I see. So you don't intend to live with your mother, right? Of course not. After hearing that phone call, I'm even thinking it's better to cut ties with her. Joe's expression was filled with more anger than ever. It was the first time I had seen him this angry. From what Joe told me, my mother-in-law had seen the layout of our new home and was convinced it was a spacious house. She had pretended to be interested and called Joe repeatedly, asking him about the number of rooms and details of the facilities. But it seems that Joe is on my side, which relieved me. Then there's no problem at all. This made me determined to get my revenge on my mother-in-law. I've had enough of her saying whatever she wants, but it's goodbye to that now. I'll make sure to settle this properly. And so the day of the move arrived. Joe and I had the movers transport our things in the morning and headed to our new home in our car. By the time we finished moving everything, it was already past 1 p.m. Checking our phones while taking a break, we saw dozens of missed calls from my mother-in-law. She called me too, Joe said, sounding weary. Then my mother-in-law called again. I answered the phone with the speaker still on. Hello? Hello, Kate. Where are you? I told you I'd be at the apartment in the afternoon, didn't I? Yes, you did say that. So what can I do for you? What do you mean you didn't arrange for the movers? I've been waiting at home, and not a single truck has shown up. So I had to go to your apartment myself. Is that so? Well, that's too bad. You know, I didn't arrange for any movers. What? That's not the agreement. Where is your new house? Huh, you really think I'll tell you? After saying that clearly, my mother-in-law uttered a dumbfounded huh. She probably thought that as long as Joe was there, she could always have her way. But Joe is different now. He's my precious ally, trying to cut off the bad ties with his family. Determined to release all my pent-up feelings, I spoke firmly. Just to let you know, neither Joe nor I have any intention of living with the two of you from now on. Please don't involve yourselves in our lives. What are you saying? Your opinion doesn't matter. It's up to Joe to decide. At least tell me where the new house is right now. Huh. How are you going to get here without even knowing the address? This house is in my name. I have the right to decide who lives here. If you two just barge in, it's trespassing, and I'll sue you right away. What? Trespassing? How rude to say that about your husband's family. At that point, Joe spoke up in a deathly cold voice. Family? My father, who was a family member, is already gone, isn't he? What are you saying, Joe? After hearing that last phone call, I'm utterly fed up with you two. Just having a blood relation with you is embarrassing. From now on, my family is only Dave and Kate. I no longer consider you two as my family. Wait, Joe, don't say such things. Don't bother us again about it. With that, Joe hung up without waiting for her reply. He swiftly set his phone to block her calls. Hey, Joe, are you really okay with this? Yeah, I finally realized that Mom was just using me to her advantage. I feel completely relieved now. Joe looked truly refreshed, sincerely believing what he said. That's how we, as a couple, managed to cut off the bad ties with my mother-in-law and sister. Afterwards, they had to change their lifestyle drastically, as Joe stopped supporting them completely. Without any contact with Joe, they lost their fallback option. Later on, my sister-in-law's part-time income wasn't enough, and my mother-in-law had to start working part-time as well. Being a housewife for so long, she wasn't used to the working environment and was clumsy, often being disliked at her workplace. Meanwhile, we live a peaceful life in our new home with no sudden visits from my mother-in-law anymore. We are truly stress-free. I'm endlessly grateful to Joe for believing in me and cutting ties with his toxic blood relatives. We might face various challenges in the future, but even then, I trust Joe, and we will support each other and walk through life together.
Shut your trap, you old hack. Women like you should learn to keep your mouth shut. My sister-in-law spat venomously, her words piercing the air like barbed arrows. I stood frozen, aghast at the unprecedented display of aggression. Never before had I witnessed such crude language and physical intimidation from a woman, let alone from someone within my own family circle. She gripped my collar with a force that mirrored a man's, sending shivers down my spine. I had harbored hopes that marriage would mellow her fiery temperament, but alas, it seemed her volatile nature persisted. My name is Helen, a 35-year-old homemaker. Since tying the knot 5 years ago, my husband Chris and I have been residing with my in-laws. Despite the challenges, they were kind souls, offering support with household chores while I juggled a job. Chris, my partner in life and age, alongside my father-in-law, were pillars of strength in our family unit, staying united through thick and thin. We decided to follow the path our parents had trodden, opting to live under the same roof as my in-laws, just as they had done. The idea was floated by our elders, suggesting it as a viable arrangement. While I understood that many women might balk at the idea of cohabiting with their in-laws, I found solace in the familiarity of a bustling household. Having grown up in a family of 12, the notion of solitary living seemed alien and disconcerting to me. Thus, when the proposal was put forth, I embraced it with genuine contentment. My in-laws were amiable folks, and I cherished the idea of perpetuating our harmonious coexistence. However, our domestic tranquility was abruptly shattered by a somber incident. My mother-in-law suffered a grievous injury outdoors, necessitating hospitalization. A heart attack had seized her as she descended a flight of stairs, causing her to tumble. Her physical agony was compounded by the frailty wrought by her heart condition. In light of these circumstances, I made the decision to resign from my job, assuming the role of a full-time homemaker. Balancing visits to the hospital with household duties, I found solace in the unwavering support of my father-in-law and Chris. Amidst the chaos, the return of my sister-in-law Sarah added another layer of complexity to our family dynamic. Sarah had long been the proverbial black sheep, casting shadows over our family harmony. At 33 years old, Sarah now divides her time between part-time employment at a clothing store and purported night shifts elsewhere. Prior to our marriage, my father-in-law had extended an offer to her: "If life becomes too burdensome, you're welcome to live with us." Yet she staunchly declined, citing a desire for independence. "I value my freedom too much to live under someone else's roof," she retorted, much to the chagrin of my in-laws. Sarah's penchant for irresponsibility had long troubled them, a trait that manifested early on during her school years. She was no stranger to conflict, often clashing with teachers and causing distress for my mother-in-law. Her tumultuous journey continued into college, marked by disputes with peers and even entanglements in extramarital affairs, much to the dismay of those around her. Despite my mother-in-law's assertions of Sarah's inherent honesty and kindness, her outward appearance, characterized by natural blonde locks and undeniable attractiveness, had been a source of adversity. Stereotypical biases against blonde women cast shadows over her academic endeavors, exacerbating her challenges. That's where it all began. The seeds of disillusionment sound deep within Sarah, particularly during her tumultuous years in middle school. The atmosphere was oppressive. Despite her innocence, her teachers cast judgmental gazes upon her, fostering a sense of unwarranted scrutiny. Feeling unjustly targeted, Sarah's demeanor and academic performance gradually deteriorated. I empathized with her plight, having experienced similar rigidity during my own schooling. A close friend with natural blonde hair had faced similar challenges, prompting me to advocate vehemently against such prejudiced treatment. Over time, my defiance softened the resolve of even the most obstinate educators. Recognizing Sarah's wounded spirit, I had hoped our family home would offer respite from the world's harsh judgments. Knowing her concerns for her ailing mother, I extended an invitation for her to accompany me to the hospital. Yet my optimism was swiftly dashed upon Sarah's arrival. Without a word of greeting, she appraised me with a disdainful glance, remarking, "Ah, you must be the housekeeper. I could use some tea." Instantly, my father-in-law's ire was kindled, his voice rising in indignation. Sarah's apology to me, Helen, rang hollow against her subsequent disparaging remarks. "She's Chris's wife, not the hired help." "Understood. And she's perfectly lovely in her own right," my father-in-law retorted, his disappointment palpable. The venom in Sarah's words, casting aspersions on my appearance and Chris's judgment, served as a stark reminder of the deep-seated animosity festering within her. Despite the rising tide of anger within me, I made a conscious choice to respond with maturity, offering Sarah a warm smile. "Hello, Sarah. It's Helen, Chris's wife. Remember meeting at our wedding?" "Ah, yes, weddings are magical, aren't they? They have a way of making even someone like you look somewhat presentable." My father-in-law's caustic remark reverberated across the room. "Sarah, that's enough." Chris's voice, tinged with surprise, cut through the tension as he descended from the second floor. It was evident he too had endured his fair share of clashes with Sarah in the past. Before Chris and I tied the knot, he had lent her money, a debt she not only failed to repay but also arrogantly dismissed his concerns with the assertion, "Listen to your sister because you're my brother." Since then, they had been locked in a silent battle of wills, exchanging glares whenever in proximity. Undeterred by the palpable discord, Sarah persisted in her disrespectful demeanor. Without so much as a word of inquiry about her mother's well-being, she proceeded to bark orders at me. "Hey, you there, make some tea pronto. And fetch some snacks while you're at it. When I'm ready to emerge, everything better be laid out. Understood?" The icy stare of disapproval from Chris was all the response she garnered. "Helen isn't a housekeeper. If you persist with such disrespect, you'll be asked to leave." My father-in-law's voice resonated with authority. "Aren't you supposed to be concerned about Mom? She's in the hospital, isn't she? Shouldn't you trust the doctors to care for her? How can you truly grasp the extent of her suffering, the severity of her illness, or the nature of her injury if you refuse to even visit her? Mom has always worried about you, Sarah. Wouldn't it be a comfort for her to see your face, filled with life and warmth?" With a resigned sigh, Sarah retorted, "I have no interest in the woman who gave birth to me, especially not because she's blonde." My father-in-law rose abruptly, his voice thundering, "Your mother is not to blame. Do you have any idea how many times she has cleaned up after you, how much love she has poured into you? Have you ever considered my feelings? No one understands the pain of being whispered about, of being judged from a young age. I shouldn't have even bothered coming. I came here to discuss engagement, and now I'm thoroughly irritated." Sarah's demeanor froze, as if she were trapped in a perpetual state of rebellion. As Sarah made her way toward the front door, intent on departure, I hurried after her. "Congratulations on your engagement, Sarah," I called out, hoping to bridge the growing chasm between us. Ignoring my attempt at civility, she pressed on, eager to escape the confrontation. Yet I refused to let her slip away without one final plea. "Are you truly not going to visit your mother?" I implored, hoping to stir some semblance of family responsibility within her. To my surprise, Sarah halted in her tracks, her expression a mix of annoyance and disdain. "You're so irritating. I came here to discuss my engagement to a wealthy man," she retorted sharply. Understanding dawned upon me, and I offered a heartfelt apology. "I see. I'm sorry for intruding. It's wonderful that you found someone special. But remember, a person's worth isn't determined by their occupation. Whether they save lives, provide livelihoods, or nurture families, every job holds value in our society. Your father and Chris are your family. Don't belittle them for their choices." As the words left my lips, Sarah's countenance twisted with unmistakable hatred, her eyes burning with resentment as she glared at me. Before I could react, Sarah seized me by the collar, sending a shockwave of fear coursing through my body like an electric current. "Shut your trap, you old bag. Housekeepers like you should learn to keep quiet." Her words pierced through me, leaving me trembling with terror. My heart constricted painfully in my chest, rendering me speechless with fear. I struggled to vocalize my distress, but my voice failed me, drowned out by the overwhelming sense of dread. As Sarah's grip loosened, a wave of relief washed over me, allowing me to draw a shaky breath. "I'm bringing my fiancé over next week. Make yourself scarce and act like a proper housekeeper. Understood?" Sarah's parting words were delivered with venom, punctuated by the resounding slam of the door. I clung to the hope that her aggression would subside once she was married. It was a comforting thought, albeit tinged with uncertainty. 3 days later, a momentous event unfolded. While strolling through the neighborhood on a routine shopping trip, I stumbled upon a scene that tugged at my heartstrings. In the park, a young girl, on the cusp of starting elementary school, sat hunched over, her tear-streaked face buried in her hands. "What's the matter, sweetie?" I inquired gently, concern etched into my voice. I lost my mom," she whimpered in response, her distress palpable. Drawing upon my own childhood antics, I recalled the countless times I had inadvertently wandered away from my parents' watchful gaze, only to be swiftly reunited with the help of my vigilant siblings. "Where were you when you got separated?" I asked, my tone soft and reassuring. I don't know, she admitted, her voice tinged with uncertainty. After learning her name, I gently took her hand and began calling out loudly for her mother as we traversed the park. Fortunately, our search yielded swift results, and we soon located the distressed parent. With tears of gratitude shimmering in her eyes, the woman profusely thanked me for my assistance. Upon closer inspection, I realized she was none other than an old classmate from my school days. Emma, is that you? I exclaimed in disbelief. Wait, are you Helen Wilson? She replied, her tone mirroring my astonishment. That's my maiden name, I confirmed, a flood of memories rushing back at the sound of her voice. I can't believe it's you, Emma. I'm sincerely sorry for the trouble, I apologize, feeling a pang of guilt for the inconvenience caused. My daughter was chasing after a bird, and I lost sight of her. Thank you so much for helping us reunite, Emma explained, her voice tinged with relief. After sharing a hearty laugh, Emma and I couldn't shake the feeling that our chance encounter was more than mere coincidence. We exchanged contact details, pledging to catch up over coffee sometime soon. Although we had been classmates, we hadn't mingled much due to differing social circles. Yet, as adults, I sensed a missed opportunity for a potential friendship blossoming between us. The following day, I met Emma at a quaint cafe. Like me, she was a devoted housewife, her daughter currently navigating the realms of kindergarten. As we delved into conversations about our shared past and recent happenings, the hours slipped away effortlessly. However, when the topic of marriage arose, a flicker of concern crossed my features. My older brother is finally tying the knot, but I can't help feeling apprehensive. The woman he's marrying had quite a reputation as a troublemaker in our neighborhood, I confessed, a hint of worry lacing my words. Perhaps she's turned over a new leaf. If your brother sees something in her worth marrying, let's hope for the best, Emma offered reassuringly. Then, with a mischievous twinkle in her eye, she dropped a bombshell. By the way, did you know that my brother had a crush on you, Helen? I was taken aback, my mind reeling with surprise. What? But we weren't even in the same grade, were we? I exclaimed, my mind racing to reconcile Emma's revelation. You were quite the catch, Helen. You had everyone swooning over you. Did you know that even the guy I had a crush on wasn't you? Emma disclosed his name, triggering a faint memory of his face, though I had never realized his feelings for me. I admit I may have felt a twinge of envy toward you back then, but it's all water under the bridge now. I'm glad I finally spilled the beans, she chuckled, a sense of relief evident in her demeanor. Well, this certainly complicates things. I always assumed the popular Helen would end up with the mature Chris. I mused, Emma's words prompting a trip down memory lane. Chris and I were indeed classmates, but like with Emma, we never really crossed paths. He was little more than a familiar face to me. However, at our reunion a decade ago, Chris confessed, I've had a crush on you since we were kids. That's when I realized I wanted no one else but Chris. And here we are, happily married, I concluded with a smile, grateful for the twists and turns that led us to where we are today. Soon, it was time for Emma to collect her daughter, signaling the end of our tea time together. Later, during my visit to the hospital to see my mother-in-law, the topic of Sarah naturally arose. Concern etched across her face, my mother-in-law insisted I must be discharged immediately, attempting to mobilize despite her frail condition. Since Chris is away on a business trip today, my father-in-law and I will take charge. We'll ensure Sarah's partner undergoes thorough scrutiny in place of my mother-in-law, I assured her firmly, prompting a chuckle from her. Witnessing her resilience, I resolved to tackle the impending marriage introduction with renewed determination. Come Saturday, Sarah arrived with her fiancé in tow. As memories of last week's altercation with Sarah flashed through my mind, a tremor of apprehension coursed through me. Nevertheless, I summoned my resolve and greeted them with a forced smile. Sarah's fiancé, a burly figure with a commanding presence, seemed taken aback upon seeing me, though the reason eluded me. Inviting them inside, my father-in-law and I exchanged pleasantries with Sarah's fiancé in the living room. However, as I busied myself boiling water, the exchange between my father-in-law, Sarah, and her fiancé unfolded in the living room. Regrettably, I missed catching his name amidst my tasks. Upon my return with the tea, I resolved to properly greet him. However, as I set the cups on the table, Sarah's taunting smirk caught me off guard. Isn't it amusing to have this woman as our housemate? She's essentially working for us, free of charge. Quite the joke, don't you think? Sarah's words sliced through the air, stinging with disdain. To hear such disparagement during our marriage introduction was beyond comprehension. Sarah's audacity left me speechless, though my indignation simmered beneath the surface. Thankfully, my father-in-law wasted no time in reprimanding Sarah. "Sarah, that's enough," he admonished sternly. Attempting to diffuse the tension, Mike interjected with a gentle tone. "I apologize. Sarah, why do you refer to her as a housemaid?" Despite his outward calm, Mike's disapproval was palpable as he fixed Sarah with a stern gaze. Unfazed, Sarah continued her tirade. "Well, that's precisely what she is, isn't it? Just look at her, hair tied back in a simple knot, wearing cheap clothes and an outdated apron. And don't even get me started on her makeup. I bet it's all bargain bin brands. She hasn't changed a bit since the last time I saw her. It's as if she's given up on herself, content to blend into the background like some forgotten woman." My father-in-law seemed on the verge of erupting into a full-fledged outburst, while Mike appeared visibly shaken, his complexion draining of color. "Don't you realize we attended the same grade school?" he interjected, his voice tinged with disbelief. "When Sarah was in 7th grade, she should have been in 9th. I assumed everyone in the neighborhood knew that." My father-in-law's response was tinged with regret. "It appears my daughter's interests lie primarily with herself. I apologize," he conceded, leaving both Sarah and me perplexed, unable to grasp the context of their cryptic exchange. Attempting to clear the air, I turned to Mike, seeking clarification. "Do you happen to know who I am?" I inquired, prompting a smile from him. "My apologies for the delayed introduction. You were Helen Wilson before marriage, correct?" "I'm Mike. My sister recently mentioned meeting you." "Oh, and Emma, your sister, mentioned her brother's impending marriage. I never imagined it would be with Sarah," I exclaimed, my astonishment evident in my voice, perhaps a touch too loud. Curiosity piqued, I pressed further. "What did you mean by people in the neighborhood knowing about me? Is it because I come from a large family?" Mike chuckled at my inquiry. "There are numerous reasons," he replied cryptically. "Didn't you know, Mrs. Wilson, you were quite the local legend? Not only were you charming, but you also stood up to the toughest teachers, earning their respect. You served as student council president in both middle and high school, and rumor has it, you turned down over 300 suitors. That's just scratching the surface of your reputation." As Mike's words sunk in, a flush of embarrassment crept up my neck, surely turning my cheeks a bright shade of crimson. "Oh, come on, that's an exaggeration," I protested, attempting to downplay my supposed achievements. "Sure, I come from a large family, but I hardly did anything remarkable in school. And as for rejecting suitors, it's more like 5, not 300. Actually," Mike interjected, "my sister mentioned how you stood up for a classmate with naturally blonde hair, challenging the prejudice against them. Your actions may not have instantly changed attitudes, but they certainly made an impact." Sarah's sharp retort cut through the air. "But weren't Helen and I in different schools? I always felt like an outcast," she countered, her voice tinged with bitterness. My father-in-law intervened, gently guiding the conversation back on track. "Sarah, Helen attended the same school as you," he clarified. "Despite the gradual shift in attitudes towards blonde-haired students, your decision to dye your hair various colors only exacerbated tensions with the teachers." His words hung in the air, a sobering reminder of the choices that had shaped our respective paths. Sarah's expression morphed from shock to a disturbing grin as she processed the implications of her actions. "So, if I hadn't dyed my hair, blonde would have been acceptable," she mused aloud, a hint of incredulity in her voice. However, her demeanor quickly darkened as she redirected her attention to me, her tone dripping with condescension. "Helen, despite your vibrant school days, look at you now, a mere housewife, devoid of any sense of style," Sarah taunted, her words laced with disdain. "Taking care of your mother-in-law and managing household chores must be quite the burden. You may have had your glory days, but now, there's nothing to boast about. This is what happens when you settle for an office worker like my brother. It's quite pitiful, really. Whereas, look at me, I'm the real winner," she crowed, punctuating her diatribe with a mocking laugh. Before my father-in-law could interject, I spoke up, determined to assert myself. "That's merely your perspective, isn't it?" I countered calmly. "I find immense joy and fulfillment in my current life. I'm surrounded by a loving husband and supportive in-laws. Yes, caring for my mother-in-law while she's in the hospital can be challenging, but it's a responsibility I gladly shoulder. I am committed to ensuring her well-being, even beyond my own share." Ultimately, her health and happiness are what truly matter. Sarah's demeanor softened as she averted her gaze. Truth be told, fashion doesn't interest me, she admitted quietly. Sure, dressing up might please my husband, but beyond that, it serves little purpose. As long as we have enough to get by, I'm content. Back when I lived with my parents, we were barely scraping by. I still remember the cramped quarters shared among the 12 of us. Compared to those days, our current situation feels like paradise. Mike stood a little taller, addressing my father-in-law with sincerity. Sir, I must apologize. Originally, I came here to seek your daughter's hand in marriage. However, after hearing Sarah's sentiments, I've come to the conclusion that I am not suited to be her husband. Please forgive my abrupt change of heart. My father-in-law's response was measured yet understanding. Given the circumstances, it's evident that not many would be keen on marrying Sarah, he acknowledged. I will protest if you choose to call off the engagement. Please accept my sincerest apologies for any inconvenience caused. Mike offered another apology before rising from his seat. Sarah, who had remained tense throughout, suddenly sprung into action, seizing onto Mike's leg. Hold on a minute, you're the one who proposed, aren't you? She exclaimed, her voice trembling with desperation. How can you speak of calling off our marriage so casually? I won't tolerate living with someone who demeans my brother's wife and ridicules her in our own home. My family consists of my brother, his wife, and my sister, and I refuse to let them be hurt by your behavior. Rest assured, I'll treat your family with kindness. That's a given. In response, Mike's tone hardened. So, you tailor your behavior based on others' status? You look down on those you consider beneath you and fawn over those you perceive as superior, he accused, his disappointment palpable. I regret not seeing this side of you sooner, but now that I know, I can't continue to love you. Please release my leg if you understand, he implored gently. With those words, Sarah relinquished her grip, sinking to her knees as tears streamed down her face, overcome with emotion. My father-in-law and I left Sarah to her emotions and escorted Mike out. Following that incident, Sarah decided to move out of the house once again. Historically, whenever she encountered financial hardships, she turned to my father-in-law for support, and he'd rarely assist her. However, given her recent disrespect towards my mother-in-law and her treatment of me as a mere maid, he made the difficult decision. My father-in-law made a firm decision not to extend any financial assistance to Sarah, regardless of her pleas. It appears Sarah now works in a clothing store, seemingly having outgrown her previous ventures into night work. However, her job doesn't seem to provide the means for her desired designer purchases, leaving her in a tough spot. Her blatant pursuit of money has left her with few allies willing to lend a hand. After being deserted by Mike and met with cold indifference from my father-in-law, Sarah sought solace from my mother-in-law. It's disheartening to witness how she resorted to tears and manipulation, attempting to elicit sympathy and financial aid from the ailing woman. Despite her own health concerns, my mother-in-law was moved by Sarah's display, but she ultimately made the difficult choice to sever ties with her. Since then, Sarah has vanished from our lives. Following my mother-in-law's discharge from the hospital, I became her constant companion, offering support as she adjusted to using a walking stick. Determined to make her daily life more manageable, I began seeking out ways to streamline household chores, ensuring her comfort and well-being. As my efforts to assist my mother-in-law gained recognition from my in-laws and Chris, expressions of gratitude flowed freely. I should be the one thanking all of you. Your support has been invaluable to me, I humbly responded, met with warm smiles from all around. Their appreciation brought me immense joy, fueling my sense of fulfillment. Maintaining regular contact with Emma, our occasional coffee outings provided moments of respite amidst the daily routines. However, the most significant news came when I discovered I was pregnant. The excitement and joy reverberated throughout the family, with my parents and siblings joining in the celebrations. I'm truly grateful for the outpouring of love and support from everyone. While I know the journey of childbirth and raising a child will present challenges, I am eager to embrace each moment with gratitude and cherish every precious memory, I reflected, filled with anticipation for the journey ahead. Are you done packing yet? Please make it quick. We plan to remodel your rooms once you move out, my oldest son's wife, Sarah, said impatiently, not even offering to help us pack. She seemed thrilled to claim this house as their own. Little did she know. Glancing at my husband, John silenced me with a look and turned a serene smile to Sarah. We're sorry for keeping you waiting. We'll leave by tomorrow with the movers coming in. It'd be best if you two stayed in your rooms. We were leaving behind the furniture and appliances we shared with Sarah and David. Besides our stuff from the bedroom and wardrobe, we didn't have much left to pack. We probably take less than half an hour to move out. The following day, our farewell was surprisingly dry. Well, we're off. Take care, we said. No apologies, no words of gratitude. They didn't see us off either. Sarah and David simply glanced at us from their leisure in the living room. Since they were so indifferent, we didn't need to make a fuss about leaving. But as we got into the cab silently, I couldn't help but worry about our cat. We were leaving her with them. Could Sarah properly care for her? Would she raise her with affection? I dialed a number on my phone as our house receded from view through the cab's window. In hindsight, it might have been my sixth sense that ticked off then. I'm Patricia, 64. I've been married to John, who's a year older than me, for 35 years. We've never had a major fight, and I would say we're pretty close. John worked for a foreign company and was often busy, but he always spent his spare time with the family. With his recent retirement, I was excited to spend more time with him, but it seems like I was the only one happy about his retirement. Our eldest son's wife was upset about it, and it was apparent. David and Sarah had been living with us in our house for a year now since their marriage. Sarah, David's wife, was actually the one who suggested we live together. We have a subway station nearby, and with a well-developed public transportation system in our area, commuting to work and going for shopping is pretty easy, which is why Sarah loved our place. My husband John and I had initially been reluctant, considering they were newlyweds, but we eventually gave in, leading to our current situation. Not even in our wildest dreams did we think things would turn out this way. What on earth are you thinking? That was one day about 2 months after John retired from his company. Just as I had returned from shopping, I heard John's booming voice and froze in the living room. John was scolding our eldest son David, who was sitting on the couch. It was unusual to find John this angry, since he's usually calm and gentle. What's going on? With a heavy sigh, John turned to me. David was rummaging through my bag and stealing money from my wallet. What? Apparently, he lost big on a trifecta bet at the Kentucky Derby and a strap for cash. With that, John snatched a few dollar bills and his wallet from David's hand. It was indeed John's wallet. I was sure of it because I had given it to him as a gift on our 20th wedding anniversary. The fact that David was holding the wallet and money was undeniable proof that what John said was true. David, didn't you quit wagering on horses? You lost big before and swore you'd never do it again. So why? Whether he heard me or not, David just continued to watch TV without responding. Ever since he was a child, he would often ignore us when we lectured him or talked about something that didn't interest him. There were times that he didn't remember the things I've told him verbally. This time was no different, and it seemed my pleas had no effect. However, even without an answer from David, I had a hunch about why he had started betting on horse racing again. Oh, it must be Sarah. David never cared about horse racing to begin with. He would never stoop so low as to take money from someone else's wallet, and he had never committed any crime like shoplifting. If I asked what caused such a drastic change in David, who was a hard-working office worker, I would answer without a doubt. It was meeting Sarah. Sarah is a bright and active woman. When we were first introduced to her, I hoped she would help bring David, who was introverted, out of his shell. But back then, I never knew about her hobby, that she was a huge fan of horse racing, and that her sense of spending is completely off-kilter. You heard your mother talking, so why don't you at least say something? Said my frustrated husband as he turned off the TV. At that, David finally opened his mouth. Shut up. I've paid you back, so stop nagging me. Besides, what's got you so worked up about a couple of $100 bills? What? I was actually surprised at how light your wallet was. You've really gone downhill, haven't you, Dad? Well, I'm retired, so what did you expect? How lame. With that, David left the living room. I almost tried to stop him, but my husband held me back. I'm at fault too for carelessly leaving my wallet around. Besides, repeatedly scolding him isn't going to help. But his attitude is far too unacceptable. This is too much. John has never been the kind of person to flaunt his role as the main breadwinner of the family. But it's a plain fact that it's thanks to him that we are able to maintain our lifestyle, and he provides for David and his wife as well. They're able to save on rent and living expenses as well, since they always come up with an excuse not to contribute to the household's expenses. So it's my husband who's been covering the majority of our expenses. And yet, instead of respecting John, David disparaged him. David's comments were unacceptable, but I was also enraged with his wife for introducing him to gambling. A few days later, still feeling uneasy, I decided to ask David's wife directly. It seems like David is struggling with money lately. Do you know anything about it? Oh, he apparently took a big hit at the Kentucky Derby. You knew about it? Yeah, after all, I was the one who suggested we go together, she admitted. Just as I thought, sure enough, David had been drawn back into horse racing by Sarah. Why would you do such a thing? David was trying to quit horse racing, I interjected. Is that so? I had no idea. Please, Sarah, I'm begging you not to invite David to the horse races anymore. If this keeps up, won't you be in trouble too? Well, we each have our own earnings and we're just doing what we like, so I have no problem with it, she replied nonchalantly. I was taken aback by her reply. Certainly, both David and Sarah, as a couple, were earning their own money and could spend it on whatever, as long as they had food, rent, and clothing covered. But you two are a married couple, right? You might even have kids in the future. For their sake as well, we've decided not to have children. We don't want to give up the things we love just to be tied down raising the kid, she revealed. I was shocked again by her response. There was too much information to process all at once, but in a way, it made sense. Having children would require them to have more savings by tens of thousands of dollars, which is probably why they could be so careless with money. But even without children, a married couple is still a married couple. But as a couple, you should support each other when in trouble, right? David is in trouble right now. Well, why don't you, Patricia, and the rest of the family help him out? You're his parents and well off, right? Oh, are you living off your pension now? But you had your retirement fund, didn't you? My husband worked for a foreign company, so we don't have a retirement fund. Really? That's a bummer, she remarked casually. I thought you had a nice retirement payout. We don't, so I need you and David as a couple to be more financially responsible. To be honest, the living expenses are already quite a burden, and we can't afford to cover for you guys anymore. Isn't that David's fault for losing? I can't take responsibility for that. But anyway, we can't right now. I was unable to secure a promise to support David and found myself ejected from David and Sarah's room. A week passed, and David's financial problems remained unsolved. Was he so desperate that he had to pilfer money from his parents' wallet? Shouldn't we help him before he resorts to illegal activity? I discussed it over and over with my husband John, but in the end, this was the result of us spoiling him in the past. John convinced me that we needed to be firm this time for his future's sake, and I had to agree. We were providing him breakfast and dinner, and he had a pass for commuting to work. The goal was simply to have him make it until his next paycheck, but then the situation took an unexpected turn. It happened on a weekend night as we finished our dinner and were relaxing in the living room as usual. Ding dong. Our doorbell rang, but we weren't expecting any visitors. So I approached the front door to see who was visiting us this late at night. I opened the door, wondering if I had a package scheduled for delivery, only to be taken aback. Standing there was Sarah, apparently unable to open the door as her hands were full with a cardboard box. What's going on? What's this box for? As I hurriedly took the box from her, a rustling sound echoed from within, causing me to let out a scream. In an instant, the box opened, and I found myself face to face with the animal inside. It was a cat. Isn't it cute? I found it abandoned on my way home, Sarah said with a proud grin. I was momentarily stunned, but I quickly remembered the gravity of the situation and yelled toward the living room, "John, go to her bedroom and shut the door immediately." I then closed the box and pushed it back towards Sarah. "I'm sorry, but we can't keep a cat in our house." "Ha, why is that?" Sarah looked confused. I explained to her that my husband, John, has a severe cat allergy. In addition to developing inflammation upon contact with cat saliva, he also suffers asthma-like symptoms when inhaling cat hair or dander. There was even a time in the past when he was rushed to the hospital because David had returned from a friend's house covered in fur. I thought I had already told Sarah about this when we started living together, but she seemed to have forgotten. "So, what are you saying? Do you want me to take it back where I found it? In this cold weather, it'll die." Sarah's statement left me at a loss for words. I couldn't possibly tell her to return it to the freezing cold outside. However, I can't expose my husband to danger either. All right, you can keep it in your room for tonight, but just for tonight. Tomorrow, we'll contact an animal shelter and ask them to take it in. I thought that, at the very least, an animal shelter would provide temporary refuge for the cat. Sarah reluctantly nodded in agreement to my suggestion. I told my husband and son about it, and they agreed to let the cat stay in John and Sarah's room for the night. However, things didn't go as smoothly as expected the next morning. John and Sarah changed their minds and decided to keep the cat. Sarah, that's not what we agreed on. But I really want to keep it. It's so cute. Why can't I keep it? Because your dad is allergic to cats. He'll be fine as long as he doesn't touch it. We'll take good care of it, please. You won't be home during work, right? Who will take care of it then? I can't, which is why I'm telling you that we can't keep it. How terrible. I didn't know that even you can be so inconsiderate, unable to even save a small and cute kitten. Animal shelters, they end up euthanizing them, you know? Handing it over to such a place just because it's inconvenient for you, turning a blind eye to the sacrifice. Do you know what they call people like you? A boomer. Why? You're just a nuisance. If you can't live with this kitten, then please leave this house immediately, Sarah snapped. I was about to snap back at her, but David chimed in. It's a good opportunity. Why don't you guys move into a retirement home? It might be comfortable. You're at that age and we're not taking care of you guys. You guys aren't even bringing in any income anymore. I've had enough. Fine. Suddenly, my husband, who had been silently listening to our argument, interrupted me. Since last night's incident, he'd been wearing gloves and a mask and keeping a distance from David and his wife. I felt sorry for making him uncomfortable in his own home. The reason we can't keep the cat is my fault. I will take your advice and leave, John said. As David said, this might be a good opportunity to consider moving into a retirement home. Saying that, John looked at me. Understanding his intentions, I remained silent. David and his wife probably took this as us giving up on our house. They suddenly became more cocky. We'll take good care of this house, so don't worry. But keep the property under your name. The paperwork and payments are a pain. Moving into a retirement home can be quite expensive, you know. Please handle yourselves. Don't rely on us. We aren't helping, they said, seeming relieved, even joyful, at our compliance. This must be their true nature. Perhaps they picked up that kitten on purpose, hoping for this to happen. I realized that we had been manipulated by Sarah. For the following week, I began packing while looking out for John. David and his wife, who had lost all reserve, continued to throw veiled insults at us. But they probably realized that if John collapsed, our move out would only get delayed. So they did not let the cat out of their room. That was the only promise they kept. Are you done packing yet? Please make it quick. We plan to remodel your rooms once you move out, Sarah said impatiently, not even offering to help us pack. It seemed they couldn't wait to make this house their own. They really don't know anything, do they? I glanced at my husband. He silently calmed me down and gave a gentle smile to Sarah. We're sorry for keeping you two waiting. We'll leave by tomorrow. The mover's coming in. It'd be best if you two stay in your rooms, he said. We were leaving the furniture and appliances that we shared with Sarah and David behind. Besides our stuff from the bedroom and wardrobe, we didn't have much left to pack. I bet it won't even take 30 minutes to move everything out. And came the next day. Our farewell was surprisingly dry. Well, we're off, I said. All right, take care, Sarah replied. No apologies, no words of gratitude. And they didn't see us off either. Sarah and David simply glanced at us from their leisure in the living room. Since they were so indifferent, we didn't need to make a fuss about leaving. But as we got in a cab, silently, I couldn't help but worry about our cat. We were leaving her with them. Could Sarah properly care for her? Would she raise her with affection? As our house receded from view through the cab's window, I dialed the number on my phone. In hindsight, it might have been my sixth sense that ticked off then. I did have some concerns about our life after moving out, but things became much easier for me. After all, we had two fewer people to worry about. Everything from meals to making choices, I only had to put in half the effort I used to. No need for considerations or worries. I felt like I had regained the freedom I had before David got married. About a week into this new daily routine, I received a call from Sarah one evening. After getting my husband's approval, I answered the call. Suddenly, a frantic voice echoed from the other end of the line. Patricia, what's going on? Power and gas have been cut off. It seemed that she had just gotten home. She was so flustered that the call had accidentally switched to video, but all that could be seen on the screen was the light from a flashlight moving around in a pitch-black room. I couldn't see her face. That's because we canceled the contract for our utility bills. Of course, they'd be off, I explained. What? What do you mean? Why did you cancel them? Are you trying to get us in trouble? Are you doing this because we kicked you out? Sarah's voice rose in panic. Sarah, calm down. Is David there? My husband's calm voice seemed to pacify her somewhat. He just got home, Sarah responded. David seemed to be having a mild panic attack at the sight of their pitch-black house. We waited for them to calm down before my husband explained the truth. We've actually sold the house. The new owner has been decided, and the handover date is coming up soon. That's why we canceled our utilities contract. Sold? We weren't told about this. Were you going through the process without telling us? We live here. I couldn't help but interrupt Sarah, hearing her entitled claim. I had to tell David about the contract and the handover date, even the progress. However, judging by Sarah's reaction, it was clear that David had not passed the message on to her. Rather, he may not even remember what he was told, given his habit of not listening. Over the past few months, the house had been in chaos due to meetings with real estate agents and potential buyers. David and Sarah, who were hardly home during the day, must have been oblivious to all this. There were plenty of chances for them to notice what was going on, but they missed them all. They simply never cared about what went on in the house, and that's on them. So, I assumed you guys would move out soon after we did. Have you not moved out yet? I decided to ask, feigning ignorance. Immediately, a quarrel erupted on the other end of the line. Accusations were thrown around. It's your fault. I didn't know we'd been fooled, and the image of David and Sarah arguing in the dark was both surreal and amusing. However, once their argument ended, David and Sarah turned their frustration back on us. Even so, isn't it overbearing to proceed with this without a consensus? I don't remember agreeing to this, Sarah complained. Well, I did get a reply when I asked if it was okay to sell the house. You said, yeah, sure, I responded. Technically, all I received was an absent-minded response from David, who was watching TV at the time. Still, he agreed to it. It's his fault for not listening and giving careless responses when I told him, I added. David was momentarily speechless, but then he seemed to have a change of heart and shouted loudly, enough. I get it. So what are we supposed to do? What do you mean? Where are we supposed to live? Where do we go now? You've prepared a place for us, right? David's yelling took my husband aback. Why? My husband asked back, puzzled. Our son was taken aback by this answer. You kicked us out. Why do we have to find you a new place? I interjected. But we really didn't kick you out. You were planning to leave anyway, right? So it's not our fault at all. Besides, it was your decision to sell the house. It's your responsibility to secure housing for us since we are affected by this, I argued. Yeah, that's right. For a rental, you pay some amount for leaving, then you gotta pay us some money too. I know you made a lot from selling the house. Rental, huh? Before paying you any vacating fee, you should pay us the rent for the period you were living in that house, shouldn't you? Plus, we covered all your living expenses too. Let's have you pay all of that upfront, including rent and living expenses. It'll be about $7,000 for a year. You can pay it right now, can't you? David and his wife remained silent with a groan. Considering David's financial situation, we were well aware that they were tight on money. Realizing that we had the upper hand, David started apologizing to appease us. That's right, we should be the ones to pay first. But we don't have the money right now, so we can't. So, to make sure we can pay you back properly, why don't we live together again? He suggested. Yeah, that's right. Please tell us where you're moving to. We'll move in with you guys right away, Sarah chimed in. I sneered at them. No, we can't live with a cat. Wasn't that the reason you kicked us out? We'll get rid of the cat right away, they offered, their selfishness evident. Feeling deeply sorry for the cat at their excessively selfish words, I refused. No, we can't live with a cat. Wasn't that the reason you kicked us out? As expected for David and his wife, the cat was nothing more than a tool to kick us out of the house. As long as it benefits you, you're willing to put others' needs over your wants. Doesn't that make you a boomer? I retorted, throwing their own words back at them. Sarah started to cry, but we had no obligation to be swayed by their tears. Besides, the place we moved into is an apartment for the elderly, so young people like you can't live there. You're the ones who suggested it, remember? I reminded them. After talking over them, I hung up. All I could hear from the phone was David and Sarah crying. In the end, we never heard an apology from them. Soon after that, the young couple left the house. Apparently, they had no savings and they both declared bankruptcy. Now, they live in public housing. When we returned to the house once for cleaning before handing it over, we were able to hear about David and Sarah from our friendly neighbor's wife. According to her, they had quite a hard time packing in a house without electricity, and as expected, they left the cat behind when they moved. Fortunately, I had asked the neighbor's wife to take care of the cat in advance, and she agreed. I offered to help her find a new owner for the cat, but she grew attached and decided to keep it. What was surprising was that David and his wife didn't get divorced. Those two were probably meant for each other. They might be eyeing my husband's inheritance, but we picked a pretty nice apartment. By the time we pass away, there will be hardly anything left. Finally, we were able to start living our life together as a couple without any interruption. The senior housing where we moved in has excellent services, with a gym, karaoke, and a pool. We even get served freshly made meals 3 times a day. And above all, there are many couples our age in the building. We have made a lot of new friends here, and we plan to enjoy our retirement years together.
I've made a significant decision regarding the $3 million. It's decided to split it between my mother and myself. This resolution came swiftly after my father's funeral. Robert, after examining the inheritance documents without seeking permission, remarked to me, "Kelly, don't be too greedy." Amidst thoughts of finally quitting my job, gratitude flooded my mind for the caring old man. "Are you referring to my dad?" I blurted out inadvertently, ignoring my confusion. Robert and my mother-in-law enthusiastically discussed plans to purchase a new car and indulge in shopping. Faced with this unexpected development, my emotions reached a boiling point. Burdened with household chores and insulted by their remarks about my father, I couldn't bear to continue living with Robert and my mother-in-law. Suppressing my anger, I forced a smile and replied, "Sure, feel free to use the money as you and my mother-in-law please." I am Kelly Cohan, a 38-year-old housewife, working alongside my husband. My parents, both doctors, ran a well-reputed clinic in our hometown. As an only child, I was showered with love. After graduating from the School of Pharmacy, I secured a job at a major pharmaceutical company. Though my parents wished I had become a doctor, they respected my decision. 10 years ago, my mother tragically died in an accident, leaving my father and me devastated. During those trying times, Robert, my then boyfriend, supported me. We met through a mutual friend, and 2 years after my mother's passing, Robert proposed. Robert was an ordinary salaryman in the food and beverage industry, but I believed we could overcome any challenge and find happiness together. My father was overjoyed when I shared news of our engagement. "I've heard how Robert supported you, Kelly. Thank you so much. Please continue to take care of her," he said, facing Robert with sincerity. Standing next to Robert, I felt a mixture of emotions. Immersed in a wave of happiness, we visited Robert's family home the following week to announce our impending marriage. His mother, adorned in flashy makeup and divorced from Robert's father, scrutinized me with an air of rudeness. "Marriage, huh? You're Robert's choice for you? Isn't she a plain choice for you, and she's older, right? Wouldn't a younger and prettier girl be better for you?" she said, evaluating me without any restraint. Quickly, Robert retorted, "Mom, you know I'm in pharmaceuticals, right? Kelly works there. Her father is a doctor and runs his practice." Instead of highlighting my character, Robert emphasized the financial advantages. In response, his mother's expression transformed into one of satisfaction. "Oh, Robert, you should have told me such important things earlier. That changes everything. I happily approve of the marriage. Nice to meet you, Kelly." "Thank you," she declared, granting her approval. With Robert overjoyed at his mother's acceptance, I couldn't shake off a lingering sense of unease. Despite the smooth proceedings and approval from Robert's mother, as we were about to register our marriage, my father, a doctor and real estate investor, presented me with an apartment in a luxury building in New York City as a wedding gift. Excitedly, I informed Robert, "Dad has given me this apartment as a wedding gift. It's our new home." Let's live here happily and peacefully together." Robert smiled, and our married life commenced. However, post-marriage, I began to notice something disconcerting. Robert, having lived with his parents until then, seemed almost incapable of handling household chores. He couldn't cook, didn't know how to operate the washing machine, and showed no interest in learning. Garbage would be left scattered around with no effort to dispose of it properly. While my intention was to conscientiously share household responsibilities, Robert's careless attitude only heightened my dissatisfaction. In the initial year of our marriage, I willingly took on all the household duties, despite some complaints, considering we were still in the honeymoon phase. However, the combination of work exhaustion and struggling to keep up with chores pushed me to my limit in our second year. Deciding it was time for a serious conversation, I bravely expressed my dissatisfaction to Robert. To my dismay, his response lacked gratitude or reflection. "I'm tired from work too. You're much better at chores than I am, right? It's better if you do them since I'm not good at it." He dismissed just like that. Consequently, Robert hardly contributed to the chores, leaving me to bear the brunt of our household responsibilities. But that wasn't the sole issue. After marrying Robert, I discovered that his mother harbored some peculiar ideas. Robert, not particularly interested in seasonal events, led me to send a quality scarf and carnations to his mother for Mother's Day. Despite selecting a nice scarf from a department store, his mother's displeased call criticized it as not being from a famous brand, deeming it absurd to send such a no-name item. Attempting to explain its quality proved futile, as she insisted on items from a very famous luxury brand. Stunned by her reaction, I reported this to Robert upon his return home. Instead of empathizing, he nonchalantly said, "What? Just do as she said." Robert failed to take my side, and from that point on, we started giving her cash as she demanded. By our 5th year of marriage, her frequent visits became a regular occurrence, always finding reasons to ask for money. Despite this, Robert, without any complaints, would always smile and comply with his mother's financial requests. I held a job while Robert's income remained limited and small, making our daily life just barely manageable. Desperation drove me to dip into our savings to cut living expenses. Despite my frustrations, I understood Robert's deep affection for his mother, who had supported me during tough times. She was the mother of someone important to me, and with that thought, I endured. Now, in our 8th year of marriage, I continued to handle all the household chores and kept giving money to my mother-in-law. One day, amidst this routine, my father, whom I hadn't seen in a while, unexpectedly called me. The story he shared during our rare meeting was shockingly unexpected. He revealed that he was suffering from terminal cancer and treatment was no longer possible. Overwhelmed with shock, tears spilled from my eyes. My father gently stroked my head, just as he did when I was a child, saying, "Kelly, this is fate. Let us accept it." Quietly, I questioned him, "Dad, why even you?" Thus, my days became a juggling act of work, household duties, and visits to my father's hospital. While work allowed some flexibility, managing the household was not easy. When I told Robert that my first priority would be caring for my father, he showed no reaction or willingness to help. "Well, it's tough with your father's sudden condition. Please do your best," was the only thing Robert said. He visited my father in the hospital only once. My father's care consumed all my time, leaving no room to spare for Robert. If I ever had a moment to worry about him, I prioritized my father. One day, as my father lay in his hospital bed, he suddenly asked, "Kelly, how is your marriage with Robert going?" Caught off guard, thoughts of Robert's demeanor at home and his mother's behavior flooded my mind. Unable to answer properly, I hesitated. Sensing my turmoil, my father comforted me, saying, "Kelly, you don't have to endure. Think about your happiness. Don't worry, you won't have any hardships after I'm gone." Tears flowed uncontrollably as my father silently and firmly held my hand. 3 months later, the inevitable moment arrived. My father passed away quietly, engulfing me in immense sorrow. Amidst funeral arrangements, Robert showed no interest in my grief and offered no help. Despite this, I was too consumed with preparations to notice. Many friends and acquaintances attended my father's funeral, making it a heartfelt farewell, even for the indifferent Robert and his mother. The day after the funeral, a lawyer called about my father's inheritance. Arranging a meeting, I listened to the surprising explanation. After deducting taxes like inheritance tax, my father's estate amounted to over $3 million. He had not only earned income as a doctor but also invested in real estate, leaving behind a vast fortune to be inherited by me, his only daughter. Wrapped in surprise and gratitude, yet trembling at the thought of handling such a huge amount of money, I stood on the threshold of a new chapter in my life. Upon returning home, I delved into the inheritance process. Spreading out the documents received from the lawyer on my desk, I tiredly read through them, feeling overwhelmed by exhaustion. Drifting off on the sofa for a brief moment, I awoke to the cheerful voices of Robert and his mother in the distance. "Huh? Robert and mother too? When did you come?" I inquired, still groggy. Approaching me with a beaming smile, Robert exclaimed, "Yes, Kelly, well done." Confused by his sudden excitement, I noticed the inheritance papers in his hand, the same documents I had been reviewing. "Wait, don't just read those without asking," I said, shocked and angry at Robert for looking through the documents without permission. Raising my voice, I expressed my displeasure. However, my mother-in-law, unconcerned, happily chimed in, "Wow, an inheritance of $3 million. Isn't that amazing? Now we can live comfortably for the rest of our lives." Confused by her sudden remark, I couldn't comprehend the shift in attitude. Robert then turned serious and continued, "By the way, about this $3 million, I decided that it will be split between me and my mom. It was right after my father's funeral." Having looked at the documents related to the inheritance I was supposed to receive without permission, Robert remarked, "Kelly, don't be too greedy." "Oh, now I can finally quit my job. I have to thank the doting old man." "Doting old man? Are you talking about my dad?" I accidentally blurted out. Ignoring my confusion over this sudden turn of events, Robert and my mother-in-law excitedly discussed buying a new car and going shopping. At that moment, I couldn't hold back my emotions any longer. I teetered on the brink of exploding, burdened with household chores and enduring insults directed at my father. Summoning all my composure, I managed a forced smile and replied, "Sure, use the money as you and my mother-in-law please." "As you wish," I added, suppressing my seething anger. My mother-in-law, seemingly satisfied, cheerfully chimed in, "That's the spirit, Kelly. Quick to agree. Now make sure you work hard and earn money. I don't want our savings to decrease, so work hard." I nodded, pretending to heed her selfish words. Subsequently, Robert and my mother-in-law embarked on a spree of lavish spending, behaving as if they had lost their senses. Robert abruptly quit his job, and my mother-in-law practically moved in with us, incessantly staying at our house. They indulged in luxury brand items and frequented expensive restaurants, boasting about their sophistication. Meanwhile, all the household chores were dumped on me, as if I were a mere maid. Robert seemed convinced that my father's inheritance would materialize immediately. Carelessly withdrawing money from our joint account, my savings of $1 million dwindled rapidly. When I protested their excessive spending, Robert dismissed it, laughing. "What are you talking about? Isn't $3 million coming soon? This kind of spending is no big deal." Despite my warnings, Robert continued unchecked. A month later, he and my mother-in-law abruptly left for a trip to Hawaii, leaving me behind without an invitation. Alone at home, I resolved to take action. About a week later, while I was relaxing at home, a loud knock on the door jolted me from my thoughts. Glancing at the intercom monitor, I spotted Robert and my mother-in-law, both adorned in aloha shirts, standing at the front door. Calmly but with simmering anger, I inquired, "What do you want?" Robert's voice rang out, filled with confusion and frustration. "What are you even talking about? Why won't the door open?" Standing firm, I confidently replied through the intercom, "Well, I changed the locks on the door, so of course it won't open." "Why?" "Let's talk this over," Robert pleaded calmly, gesturing towards a nearby cafe. "Please go ahead, I'll join you shortly," I suggested. knowing our conversation was futile at the entrance. Once I confirmed they have left, I made my way to the cafe. Arriving, I saw Robert and his mother already waiting, visibly furious. "What's this about? Did you change the locks? Hand over the new keys right now," Robert demanded. "There's no need for me to give you the new keys. You both need to leave that house," I calmly asserted, facing their growing anger. Presenting a piece of paper, I revealed my decision. A divorce petition I had already filled out. "Divorce? You're serious about divorcing me?" His mother's voice trembled with shock. "Kelly, why has it come to this?" she queried, bewildered. In a quiet tone, I addressed their panic. "By the way, you've been spending lavishly every day. Are you sure your finances are okay?" Robert vehemently defended. "What money? Of course it's fine. Your father's inheritance is coming, right? There should still be over $50,000 in our joint account. Look, I'll show you right now." Opening his banking app, Robert's expression shifted abruptly. "What? What's this? Why is the money gone? It was there just the other day," he exclaimed, his mother mirroring his confusion as she frantically checked her phone. A loud knock on the door jolted me from my thoughts. Glancing at the intercom monitor, I spotted Robert and my mother-in-law, both adorned in aloha shirts, standing at the front door. Calmly but with simmering anger, I inquired, "What do you want?" Robert's voice rang out, filled with confusion and frustration. "What are you even talking about? Why won't the door open?" Standing firm, I confidently replied through the intercom, "Well, I changed the locks on the door, so of course it won't open." "Why?" "Let's talk this over," Robert pleaded calmly, gesturing towards a nearby cafe. "Please go ahead. I'll join you shortly," I suggested, knowing our conversation was futile at the entrance. Once I confirmed they have left, I made my way to the cafe. Arriving, I saw Robert and his mother already waiting, visibly furious. "What's this about? Did you change the locks? Hand over the new keys right now," Robert demanded. "There's no need for me to give you the new keys. You both need to leave that house," I calmly asserted, facing their growing anger. Presenting a piece of paper, I revealed my decision. A divorce petition I had already filled out. "Divorce? You're serious about divorcing me?" His mother's voice trembled with shock. "Kelly, why has it come to this?" she queried, bewildered. In a quiet tone, I addressed their panic. "By the way, you've been spending lavishly every day. Are you sure your finances are okay?" Robert vehemently defended. "What money? Of course it's fine. Your father's inheritance is coming, right? There should still be over $50,000 in our joint account. Look, I'll show you right now." Opening his banking app, Robert's expression shifted abruptly. "What? What's this? Why is the money gone? It was there just the other day," he exclaimed, his mother mirroring his confusion as she frantically checked her phone. I revealed the truth to them as they panicked, failing to grasp the situation. "Of course it's gone. I'm divorcing you, so I moved that $50,000 to my account as part of the property division," I explained calmly. Robert's face twisted with anger momentarily, but then he smirked, almost recalling something. "Fine, I'll divorce you then. Transfer the inheritance you got from your dad right away. After all, property acquired during the marriage is split half and half in a divorce, right?" he retorted. "Well, you might be misunderstanding something," I replied evenly. "Why didn't you know that the inheritance I received, even though it was during our marriage, doesn't count for property division?" There was a moment of stunned silence between us. Then Robert and his mother's expressions shifted drastically. Perhaps they truly believed they would receive part of my inheritance. I was astonished and could only sigh in disbelief. "No, that can't be true. That's impossible," his mother protested. Her face blushed with a mix of denial and anger. "Please, check for yourself," I said mockingly. Robert started frantically searching on his smartphone. "It says here property inherited by one spouse from a parent is considered separate property. Therefore, it's not subject to division and can't be split between the spouses," he read aloud, his mother joining in shock. Desperate, Robert approached me, pleading, "Kelly, please don't divorce me. I have no savings and no job. How am I supposed to live if you divorce me? Faced with his plea, I remained resolute. Realizing it was time to move forward, I spoke clearly and firmly. What are you talking about? Take responsibility for your actions. I will never forget how you both treated me. I'm divorcing you. I'll go to court if I have to. Intimidated by my fierce demeanor, Robert and his mother shrank back in fear, whimpering softly. Later on, Robert and I went through the divorce proceedings without issues. The $50,000 I had moved from our joint account was recognized as part of the marital property division. Eventually, I managed to evict Robert and his mother from my house. They found themselves deeper in debt, living in a rundown apartment and working tirelessly every day to pay off their debts. In contrast, I sold a condo I used to share with Robert and moved into my father's apartment. With the inheritance I received, I now live comfortably. Grateful to my late father, I aim to protect my happiness and spend my days peacefully, cherishing my new life ahead.
I'm Karen, 33 years old, happily married to William, who's also 33, and together we have our precious 3-year-old daughter, Evelyn. William's family is deeply rooted in education. They run a successful tutoring center, with both his parents being former teachers and William holding a teaching license himself. Academia runs in their blood. It's surreal sometimes to think I'm part of such a distinguished family. Initially, my own parents and friends were apprehensive, but their worries were unfounded. The truth is, William's family is wonderful. Despite my more sporty inclinations, they embrace me wholeheartedly. My mother-in-law was especially delighted to gain a daughter. Though I felt a bit nervous initially, my buoyant and outgoing nature helped bridge any gaps. I chose to be authentically myself, and through that, we cultivated a strong and loving relationship. I'm a certified arborist, specializing in the health assessments, pruning, planting, and relocation of trees, along with offering consulting services. Achieving my certification required rigorous study, and even now, in the field, it remains physically demanding. This job demands both brains and brawn, and I take pride in excelling at both. Currently, my husband works as a tutor at his family's tutoring center, though he previously taught elementary school. Our paths first crossed when I visited his school for a consultation on tree care. After the birth of our daughter, I took some time for parental leave, only returning to work last year. With our little one still in her tender years, family takes precedence, a balance thankfully supported by my understanding workplace. Nonetheless, there are occasions when I struggle to make it home in time for pickup. In such moments, I'm grateful for the assistance of my mother-in-law and the flexibility of my husband, who steps in whenever possible. It's a life filled with fulfillment, supported by a network of understanding and assistance. In my married life, there was one individual who brought some challenges. My sister-in-law, married to my husband's brother. My husband has 2 siblings and he falls in the middle. The youngest brother remains unattached, while the eldest, Richard, is married to Sarah, the source of my concerns. Sarah is primarily a homemaker but also lends a hand with the financial and administrative tasks at the tutoring center. She and Richard have a 5-year-old son, and it appears they're gearing up to enroll him in a private elementary school. The first encounter with Sarah, during a visit to my in-laws, revealed her distinct demeanor. She was petite, impeccably dressed, with neatly styled hair, and her smile was captivating. Yet beneath that exterior, there lay another side to her. It was in the midst of assisting my mother-in-law in the kitchen when Sarah momentarily stepped away. Suddenly, her tone transformed as she confronted me. "Could you not put more effort into your appearance?" I was taken aback. The Sarah who had just been smiling seemed like an entirely different person. "You always seem to wear clothes that are worn and unkempt. Don't you realize you stand out for the wrong reasons? It's embarrassing." These clothes are just practical for me, especially since I'm constantly chasing after my little daughter," I explained. "I understand, I have a child too," Sarah responded with an exaggerated sigh, hinting at more she wanted to convey. However, her demeanor swiftly reverted to its usual state upon seeing my mother-in-law approaching. "Oh, what's the conversation about?" my mother-in-law inquired as she re-entered the room. "Just chatting about childcare," I replied, noticing Sarah's rapid shift in tone. It was almost as if she had a built-in switch that activated whenever my mother-in-law was around. My mother-in-law gave me a quizzical look, silently asking if that was the case. Yes, just discussing our kids, Sarah chimed in, appearing content with the explanation. Skinny Sarah's snide remarks didn't particularly intimidate me, but I couldn't easily brush off her level of sarcasm, especially without causing undue concern for my mother-in-law. It's not uncommon to hear about tensions with in-laws. It's practically a universal experience, what with the notorious mother-in-law factor. In contrast, my mother-in-law is a beacon of support, always championing my career endeavors. I initially believed I could deflect my sister-in-law's barbs effortlessly. However, every encounter seemed to escalate her belittling behavior. During a hurried work errand, I unexpectedly ran into Sarah, engaged in conversation with a group of her acquaintances. Offering a polite greeting, I acknowledged her presence. "Hello, Sarah." "Oh, hi there," came her response. Hastening on my way, I thought little of the brief interaction until later that evening when my home phone rang and Sarah's name flashed on the caller ID. "What do you think you're doing?" Sarah's voice sliced through the air, dripping with aggression. Right from the start. Confused, I asked, "What do you mean, earlier today? Don't you dare come up to me in public dressed like that." Her tone was harsh, her words cutting. "What's with your work attire? It's utterly inappropriate to stroll around like that. Did you see us? We're all moms, getting our kids ready for private school entrance exams. We live in a different world from you." I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment as she continued her verbal assault without pause. "I was working, so yes, I was in my work clothes," I responded, trying to maintain composure. "I don't care about your excuses. Just steer clear of me next time we bump into each other outside, okay? It's embarrassing." "But isn't it even more awkward? We're family," I protested. "That's exactly my point," she shot back. "You don't fit into this family. Just so you know, I've never considered you a sister-in-law." With that, she abruptly ended the call, leaving me reeling from an unexpected onslaught of her feelings. It was clear she had gone out of her way to unload her frustrations. Despite her consistent complaints about me during family gatherings, it's when we're alone that my sister-in-law truly unveils her true colors. She prides herself on being a fashionable, high-society woman hailing from a well-to-do family. While I respect her preferences, I can't comprehend her incessant need to belittle me simply because I don't conform to her standards. Sure, she may sport elegant attire paired with athletic accessories, but why the excessive collection? I often wonder if her reserved husband, my brother-in-law, indulges her shopping sprees. Perhaps he's oblivious to this side of her personality. It's just part of who she is. I've refrained from sharing these observations with my brother-in-law and mother-in-law, opting to confide in my husband instead, given the mounting stress. "Really? She doesn't strike me as that type," he initially brushed it off. However, a few days later, my mother-in-law reached out, extending an invitation to a family dinner scheduled for the upcoming weekend. We live roughly 30 minutes apart by car. Typically, my mother-in-law doesn't meddle in our households. However, she insists on bringing the entire family together for special occasions like my father-in-law's birthday, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. This time, it was because my father-in-law's birthday was approaching. We managed to secure a private room at his favorite steakhouse this time around. It's our inaugural visit as a family, and the anticipation is palpable. "I hope you're looking forward to it," my mother-in-law remarked. "Oh, absolutely. Thank you," I replied, genuinely excited, albeit dreading the inevitable encounter with my sister-in-law. "You don't seem too thrilled. Is work keeping you busy?" she inquired. "Oh, I'm fine. Really," I quickly reassured her. "Uh-oh," had my tone given away my apprehension. I hurriedly attempted to dispel any concern. "Karen, if there's anything troubling you at home, please don't hesitate to tell me, okay?" She pressed further. Our home. Everything's under control. Even when work keeps me late, you've been a tremendous help. I truly appreciate all your support," I responded. "It's not about your family, though," she clarified. "Ha!" I was puzzled, failing to grasp her meaning. The weekend finally arrived, ushering in the much-anticipated dinner party in honor of my father-in-law's birthday. It was an opportunity to shower him and my mother-in-law with gratitude. I made a silent vow to immerse myself in the celebration and not allow my sister-in-law's venomous demeanor to dampen my spirits. Setting out early from home, I entered the private room at the restaurant with a sense of relief. My father-in-law, mother-in-law, brother-in-law, and sister-in-law had yet to arrive. I'd arrived ahead of schedule to ensure my father-in-law wouldn't be kept waiting on his special day, and also, if I'm honest, to minimize any interaction with Sarah. However, just as I settled in, my brother-in-law and Sarah made their entrance. "Hello," I greeted them, mustering a polite smile. "Hi, Karen," Sarah responded coolly. "Richard, good to see you," I added, attempting to maintain a cordial atmosphere. While my husband and brother-in-law engaged in conversation, Sarah wasted no time in approaching me, her gaze sweeping me from head to toe before emitting an audible sigh. "What on earth are you wearing?" Sarah's disdainful remark sliced through the air, delivered in a hushed tone as if attempting to avoid detection. It was the usual start to her demeaning comments. I forced a tight-lipped smile, trying to maintain composure. "Is this really the appropriate time or place for this?" I questioned through clenched teeth. "I chose this dress with the occasion in mind. Is it not suitable? It's not like it's from some high-end brand or anything. It's rather surprising you'd show up in such a cheap ensemble," Sarah continued, her tone dripping with condescension. "And those shoulders of yours for a woman, they're quite broad. The dress doesn't flatter you at all. And your accessories? Just a wedding ring? And no nail polish. Your hands look rough." I bristled at her critique. "I can't wear nail polish for my job. Ever thought about how inconvenient it would be to do household chores with long nails, Sarah?" I countered. "My work involves handling wood and soil, in addition to household tasks. My hands may not be dainty, but they're a testament to my hard work as a gardener. These hands, these shoulders, they're my pride." But she continued to belittle them, and I couldn't hold back any longer. "What's that supposed to mean? Are you insinuating that I don't do housework?" My retort seemed to strike a nerve as Sarah's voice suddenly rose in volume. "I've had enough of you," Sarah seethed, her frustration bubbling over. "I've tried to extend a helping hand out of kindness, but you never listen. And now you're resisting. It's unbearable to be associated with a rough woman like you." Feeling the weight of her words, Sarah seemed to momentarily lose her grip on reality and the context of the situation. "I've made a mistake," she murmured, her anger clouding her judgment. "Today is my father-in-law's celebration. Please just leave me alone." Confusion mingled with hurt as I struggled to comprehend her sudden outburst. "What? You're the one causing a scene. You're the one who doesn't fit into this family," I retorted, my patience wearing thin. "I've already told you I won't dine with someone as uncouth as you. Just go home." "Excuse me, I have to go home. This dinner was arranged by my mother-in-law, and the one clearly disrupting it is her. We can address your grievances about me later. Trust me, I have a few things to say to you as well. But for now, I've made up my mind to stand my ground. And you? You don't get to speak to me that way. Didn't you hear me? I said go home. In fact, consider leaving this family." Just as my husband began to approach, responding to Sarah's escalating voice, the door to the private room swung open. "It's you who should be leaving," my mother-in-law entered calmly yet assertively. Following her were my father-in-law and their youngest son, John. My mother-in-law gently shut the door behind them, signaling the end of the confrontation. "What?" Sarah's fiery demeanor seemed to evaporate as she suddenly realized the gravity of the situation. Her mouth opened and closed in disbelief, words failing her momentarily. What's going on?" "Everyone please, let's sit down," she stammered, attempting to regain control. Despite her soft tone, there was an undeniable authority in my mother-in-law's presence that compelled everyone to comply. "It appears we need to address something before we can proceed with the birthday celebration. I apologize for this disruption," my mother-in-law continued, glancing at my father-in-law, who nodded in agreement, before turning her attention back to Sarah. "Sarah, what exactly did you say to Karen?" Even my typically gentle mother-in-law could wield a sharp edge of sarcasm when necessary. Sarah, visibly flustered, attempted to backtrack. "Oh, I was just saying how much I'm looking forward to the meal today. Did I mishear something? I thought I heard someone saying leave." "Huh? No, it was just a minor disagreement, just a playful banter." Sarah attempted to downplay the situation, still visibly perturbed. I couldn't help but admire her attempt to restore her usual cheerful facade. "A disagreement? What sparked it? It appeared you were the one dominating the conversation. Have you been treating Karen like this all along?" My mother-in-law's gaze bore into Sarah, her words cutting through the tension like a sharp blade. "I wasn't mistreating her. I was merely offering some advice on etiquette and attire as a senior member of this household." Sarah defended herself, though her explanation rang hollow. Everyone should have the freedom to dress as they please as long as it's respectful. Karen's attire wasn't out of place. She simply chose non-branded clothing and kept her makeup and accessories minimal. I thought she should avoid causing embarrassment for you and the rest of us. Enough. My mother-in-law's sudden outburst startled both Sarah and me. The three brothers and my father-in-law were well aware of how formidable my mother-in-law could be when injured, but they remained composed, diverting their attention to the children with picture books and gentle conversation to ease the tension. No, Sarah, it's you who should be feeling embarrassed. I've sensed something amiss between you two, even during gatherings at our home. Initially, I assumed you were engaged in friendly chats, my mother-in-law continued, her tone cutting through the air with precision. Huh? Yes, friendly chats, exactly, Sarah chimed in, her desperation evident in her eyes as she cast a pleading glance my way. However, avoided meeting her gaze. For the record, Karen never once complained about you. She extended kindness, hoping you might eventually change your approach, but instead, you chose to escalate, my mother-in-law asserted, her words carrying a weight of disappointment. Stammering, Sarah attempted to formulate a response only to be met with my mother-in-law's unwavering scrutiny. And you always dress impeccably with an extensive collection of handbags. My mother-in-law continued, her tone growing sharper. But where does all that money come from? Just as Sarah thought she had regained control of the conversation, an unexpected question left her stunned. That money, it comes from we compensate you for your assistance with the tutoring center's finances, she stammered, her attempt at an explanation faltering. Even if my son has given you permission to use those funds as you see fit, it hardly seems sufficient to account for your lavish purchases of designer clothes and handbags. Well, you see, Sarah began, her voice trailing off as my mother-in-law's pointed inquiry pierced the air. Are you taking advantage of your position overseeing the household finances to fulfill your own desires? My mother-in-law pressed further. What do you mean? Sarah's confusion was palpable, her words stumbling over each other in a desperate attempt to deflect the accusation. I couldn't help but share in her confusion. I, too, had often wondered about the source of their wealth. Initially, I had assumed my brother-in-law was simply a generous provider. Perhaps he entrusted all financial matters to Sarah. It troubled me to think he might have been oblivious to their spending habits, perhaps swayed by Sarah's facade of being a dutiful wife. In that light, I almost felt sorry for him. So, you've been splurging recklessly, and now you're considering sending your child to a private school? My mother-in-law queried. Surely, you've been setting aside funds for their education, haven't you? Well, you're not suggesting we foot the bill, are you? Sarah hesitated, her response tinged with uncertainty. No, not at all, but he's your beloved grandchild after all. It became clear that Sarah had been counting on my father-in-law and mother-in-law's financial support all along. Naturally, we adore our grandchildren. We're prepared to assist them financially if necessary, my mother-in-law affirmed. Really? But only after you're no longer living under our roof? I interjected, taken aback by the implications. What? No, that's not what I meant. I apologize for telling you to leave, Karen, Sarah interjected, addressing me by name for the first time. You'll forgive me, won't you? We're practically sisters, after all. Sisters only as long as you're married to my brother-in-law. My mother-in-law glanced at me, silently encouraging me to continue. Even if it's official, I don't want to consider you family. I don't see you as a sister, I stated firmly. Sarah's response was a startled noise, clearly caught off guard. And that's not all. It seems you've been dipping into the funds from the tutoring school, my mother-in-law continued, her words landing like a bombshell. Sarah was rendered speechless, her eyes widening in shock. Is that true? I couldn't hide my surprise at my mother-in-law's revelation. While I had suspected Sarah might be using household funds, I never imagined she would touch the money from the tutoring school operated by my in-laws. You managed to evade detection for some time, so it took us a while to uncover your actions. Even Bob, who has overseen our accounts for years, fell victim to your manipulation, my mother-in-law continued, her tone stern. Sarah's complexion paled visibly. You've been making purchases like gift baskets for our suppliers, showing appreciation to teachers, and hosting seminars, all under your purview. The expenses on the receipts gradually escalated. You offered excuses, claiming you were fulfilling birthday gift requests or acting on behalf of me or my son. But that's simply not. Sarah interjected, her voice shaky, attempting to deny the accusations. You've been purchasing items under false pretenses, mislabeling them as gifts. This is unprecedented, but Bob trusted you as our son's wife. He was informed that you were treating part-time lecturers to lunch, but in reality, you were indulging in tea and dining with your circle of friends, my mother-in-law continued, her disappointment evident in her voice. The suspicious transactions on the receipts began to multiply, and Bob eventually brought his concerns to our attention. Even before that, our son had initiated an inquiry after noticing irregularities, she added, her tone growing increasingly grave. What? You've betrayed the trust of everyone who believed in you. It appears that appearances matter more to you than anything else, my mother-in-law accused. Sarah turned to my brother-in-law, as if pleading for assistance, her voice barely above a whisper. However, he met her gaze with a cold stare, remaining silent. And if all these allegations hold true, I can hardly blame him, my mother-in-law continued, her gaze shifting to me. Karen, on the other hand, is the epitome of selflessness. While she may not prioritize fashion, she consistently places the needs of her family and her profession above her own. You may not take an interest in her work, but being a certified arborist is a remarkable achievement. I have no doubt she worked diligently to attain it. As Sarah sat there, rendered speechless and defeated, my mother-in-law shifted her focus to me. Unintentionally, tears welled up in my eyes at her unexpected words. I admire her, my mother-in-law began, her voice carrying a tone of genuine respect. I believe that if she wishes to continue her work, it's our duty to support her. Have you ever witnessed her in action? She's vibrant, unafraid to get her hands dirty or soil her clothes. And yet, you ridicule her. I remained silent, overcome with emotion, while Sarah was unable to muster any retort or defense. She simply hung her head in shame. While our tutoring school may not boast the grandeur of major corporations, we prioritize our teachers and students, earning their trust, my mother-in-law continued, her words resolute. We've steadily grown by addressing each student's unique needs and those of their families. What truly matters are the people and their hearts. It's you who doesn't belong here. It's you who should leave. My mother-in-law's decisive stance left an indelible impression on me. Sarah, who had meticulously crafted an image of a flawless, sophisticated wife, was abruptly ousted from her affluent family. Despite attempts at reconciliation from my brother-in-law, Sarah's refusal to acknowledge her misdeeds and her simmering anger led to the serving of divorce papers. With the truth of her embezzlement exposed, Sarah's hopes for compensation vanished, leaving her with nothing. Meanwhile, my brother-in-law, supported by our father-in-law and mother-in-law, vowed to maintain stability for their son. Sarah, who habitually prioritized her own desires, would vent her frustrations onto her son when things didn't go her way. Yet the young boy remained resolute, finding solace in the reassurances of his father and grandparents. Although Sarah had insisted on sending him to a private elementary school against his wishes, he now enjoys carefree days spent playing with our daughter, free from the pressures of forced academics. Naturally, my husband and I are eager to offer our support in any way possible. During a relaxed day spent at my in-laws' home, my mother-in-law approached me with a heartfelt apology. I deeply regret any discomfort we may have caused you. We should have been more observant, she expressed sincerely. Oh, please don't worry about it. I wasn't truly bothered initially, I reassured her. If you ever find yourself in need of assistance in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, she offered kindly. Yes, I replied, recalling your earlier sentiment, what's important is people and hearts. Suddenly, I noticed my mother-in-law's puzzled expression as I gazed at her intently. It's nothing. I was simply admiring your resilience, I clarified. Well, thank you, but the real admiration should be directed towards you and your talent for creating such stunning gardens, she countered graciously. Perhaps I'll enlist your help with ours next time. I've been meaning to replant the flower beds. Oh, definitely. I'd be thrilled to lend a hand, even if it's just for fun. Just give me a shout whenever you're ready, I responded eagerly. You should consider charging her, Mom. She can be quite demanding, my husband interjected with a playful tone, eliciting laughter from all of us. It was a moment of genuine warmth and camaraderie. Value people, cherish hearts. Those words echoed in my mind, leaving a lasting impression. As I looked around at my beloved family, I made a silent vow to treasure these moments and to prioritize laughter and joy in our future together. After returning from a week-long international trip, I was pleasantly surprised when my mother-in-law, Linda, called me with an air of victory. She mentioned something about a $30,000 windfall we had apparently saved. Confused, I tried to recall any recent instance where I had amassed such a sum. As a freelance jewelry designer, I maintain a savings account for unexpected expenses, but I certainly don't keep large amounts of cash around. My bank card was securely with me, and normally, no one else has access to withdraw such a substantial amount from my account. He gave it to me, so I took it from the sideboard drawer, Linda declared over the phone, leaving me bewildered. Before I could understand more, she quickly thanked me and hinted at counting on me for future financial help before hanging up. I was left puzzled about the missing $30,000 until Kevin, my husband, returned home and cleared up the confusion. It was a misunderstanding. However, a month later, Linda bombarded me with numerous calls. I chose to ignore them initially, but the constant ringing eventually compelled me to answer. Over 60 missed calls displayed on my phone screen was disconcerting. As I picked up, Linda's shrill voice filled the room, accusing me of ignoring her. Her tone suggested she felt wronged, but to me, it was merely the consequences of her assumptions. My life as Mary, a 35-year-old busy freelance jewelry designer wanting children but overwhelmed by work, is shared with my equally busy husband Kevin. He originally had a corporate job but now assists me in managing my growing design business. Early in our marriage, my designing gigs were sparse and we largely depended on Kevin's steady income. Now, as my business flourishes, our roles and responsibilities have evolved, but so have our challenges, like dealing with unexpected family misunderstandings about money. As I neared the age of 33, my career as a jewelry designer had begun to flourish, necessitating better organization of my increasingly hectic schedule. Sensing the growing demands of my business, Kevin, who was well placed in his company and on track for promotion, made a bold decision. He resigned from his job to partner with me, applying his skills and management to our joint venture. Together, we secured contracts with prestigious international brands, enhancing both our professional and personal lives. However, managing success came with its unique set of challenges, particularly involving Kevin's mother, Linda. Living alone in the family home, she perceived our lives through a lens of luxury and often approached us with financial requests. "You always seem to be living so lavishly. I'm jealous," she would comment. As part of my role, attending product launches and dinners with executives was routine, yet Linda saw these obligations as mere leisure. Her requests grew more personal over time. "I'm going to throw a party for my friend soon. Can you give me some money for it?" she asked on one occasion. Although it might appear that we could easily afford such expenses, maintaining our business image was costly and filled with obligations that we couldn't ignore. We weren't living in luxury. These were necessary aspects of our work. Despite my repeated refusals, Kevin, being her son, would occasionally acquiesce to demands, reasoning that a little financial help was a small price for peace. "If giving her a little money keeps her quiet, then it's worth it," he argued, finding it simpler to appease her than to have her work disrupted. Yet Linda's demands only escalated. Recently, she expressed a desire for a new dress for an upcoming gathering. Just the other day, Linda came over and pestered Kevin. "Wouldn't a two-piece suit work? We've been asked to buy clothes before," she said. There might be cheaper options, but what Linda wants is certainly not cheap. I explained to her that her rebuttal was that it was a fancy party, and she couldn't be the only one dressed in old clothes. Furthermore, she insisted on a matching bag, leaving us exasperated. To manage her frequent requests, Kevin had previously set up a credit card in Linda's name, instructing her to use it for her expenses. Initially, she overspent significantly and was cautioned by Kevin. Although he asked her to inform us before making significant purchases, she continued her extravagant spending. This pattern of financial demands has left both Kevin and me at our wits' end, trying to balance the delicate act of supporting family while maintaining the integrity and sustainability of our business. I discovered an exquisite ring and couldn't resist purchasing it, though I regret not informing you beforehand. Unfortunately, the bill was exorbitant. If spending is going to be this unrestrained, perhaps it's best to return the card. We simply cannot cover these costs. The credit card was in Linda's name, but Kevin was the one managing and paying the bills. Linda seemed to misunderstand the purpose of the credit card, treating it as if it were an unlimited resource. She didn't grasp that every purchase made would eventually need to be paid for, and since the money wasn't coming directly from her own pocket, she continued to use it freely. Recognizing the need to curb her spending, Kevin decided to set a spending limit on her card. This led to Linda storming into our home one day, frustrated and complaining. "What the heck? I couldn't pay for my shopping the other day," Linda complained. "Why?" We explained that your excessive spending was straining our finances, which necessitated lowering your monthly limit. Kevin replied, trying to maintain some peace. "It's still enough, right? But you two are still dressing up and going to fancy places. How is what I'm doing any different?" Linda protested, viewing our activities as purely recreational. "That's part of our job, Linda. If that's a job, then what I'm doing isn't any different," I explained. "It's unfair that only you two get to have all the fun," she argued. While it's true that our work involves attending product launches and parties in luxurious venues, these are professional obligations, not leisure activities, despite her misconceptions. Setting a spending limit on Linda's credit card seemed to have calmed the situation somewhat. Occasionally, Linda would visit and air her grievances to Kevin, but overall, life proceeded without major disruptions. As the end of the year approached, an exciting opportunity presented itself. A foreign brand manufacturer approached me with a proposal to expand our business dealings by relocating our base overseas. The prospect thrilled me, as it could potentially elevate me to the ranks of top-tier designers. Kevin, ever supportive as my manager, was all for taking the leap. "It's a chance we have to take," he affirmed. However, the prospect of moving abroad brought a new concern. Linda. Given her past behavior, it was a legitimate worry that she might insist on joining us overseas. The idea of living internationally was appealing, yet the thought of dealing with Linda's demands in a new country was daunting. When we shared our plans to move overseas for work with Linda that weekend, she responded exactly as we predicted. "I want to come too," she declared, assuming our move would be an endless vacation. "We're going there for work. It won't be as leisurely as you think," Kevin tried to clarify. "You're trying to trick me. You plan to live even more lavishly there without me watching," she accused. "We're not moving there permanently. We'll come back after our work is done," I assured her. I explained, trying to ease her concerns. "Yes," she retorted, "you're saying that, but you're planning to leave me behind, aren't you?" Exhausted by this repetitive argument, both Kevin and I were weary. In an attempt to compromise, Kevin suggested, "Okay, we can't take you with us, but how about we pay for a week-long trip for you instead?" Linda perked up at this. "Really? Are you sure? We'll cover your flight and hotel, but you'll need to manage the rest," Kevin affirmed, pleased at least for the moment. However, the peace was short-lived. A few days later, while Kevin was preoccupied with the overseas move arrangements, Linda dropped by unexpectedly. "Hey, Mary," Kevin said, "but I want to shop over there too. Can you give me some money?" she asked. "What about the card that Kevin gave you?" I inquired, knowing she had a designated credit card for such expenses. Linda's face fell. "That's the thing. Kevin finally took it away from me the other day," she admitted. It appears she had been reprimanded for overspending, and anticipating the challenges of managing finances with different currency rates overseas, Kevin had confiscated the card. "I don't have that kind of money on hand either. I can't give you money without Kevin's approval." "Can you ask him?" I suggested, knowing full well Kevin's stance. "It's no use asking him. That's why I'm asking you," she pressed, raising her voice in frustration. Despite this, Linda did end up going on a 10-day trip abroad, which I assumed Kevin managed to fund somehow. Upon her return, she called me, brimming with excitement. "I'm back, and it was so fun." She excitedly shared tales of her sightseeing and dining adventures. "Though I hadn't asked, and I overbought souvenirs. I could have fit them in my suitcase if I had them shipped here. Can't wait for them to arrive," she exclaimed. "That's nice," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral despite feeling a bit overwhelmed. "Thanks to the money you saved up, I had a blast," she exclaimed. "Saved up money? What are you talking about?" I responded, puzzled and a bit alarmed, having no recollection of setting aside money for her splurge. "I found it in your house's sideboard drawer," Linda said, claiming she took $30,000. I was stunned. Why would such a large amount of cash be stashed away at home, especially not in a drawer where anyone could find it? Confused, I confronted her. "I'm not sure what money you're talking about, but taking it from our house without permission is theft, even if you're family. Do you understand that?" I asked. Linda's response was unsettlingly casual. "That's why I'm telling you now. I used it. Consider it a post-factum report," she declared unapologetically. I have no idea about this money, but if you took it and used it without telling anyone, that's a crime. And if it was something Kevin had set aside for an important transaction, it's even more serious, I explained, trying to make sense of the situation. Despite this, there hadn't been any noticeable disruptions in our business finances during her trip. You two live so extravagantly, so why can't I have a little of that? Think of it as doing a favor for your parent. It's not a big deal, right? She rationalized, showing a sense of entitlement that was hard to comprehend. It's one thing to ask for help from your son and his wife, but this is not how you should behave after taking someone else's money, I replied, still in disbelief. I'm glad you enjoyed your trip. I'll have to discuss this with Kevin when he returns, I continued. Kevin will understand. After all, I'm his only mother, and $30,000 isn't much to him, she assumed. All right, I'll pass the message along, I said, astounded by her lack of awareness. Later that evening, when Kevin came home, he looked troubled. Mary, do you know about the money? I left it in the drawer, he asked urgently. 15 days ago, I withdrew it from my bank account, and now it's gone. Keeping such a large sum in a drawer, didn't you think it was careless? He questioned. I needed cash immediately for an urgent payment. Do you know anything about it? It suddenly clicked. Linda's earlier call, thanking me for the $30,000 and mentioning how much fun she had, made sense now. It was Kevin's money, meant for a crucial purpose. Kevin, today Linda called, thanking us for the $30,000 and saying she had a blast with it. I didn't understand what she meant until now, I explained, piecing everything together. So it was Kevin's money, but what was such a large amount meant for? I asked. Hey, if it wasn't for a business payment, we've been doing bank transfers for a long time, right? Why cash all of a sudden? I questioned, trying to understand the whole scenario while dealing with the ramifications of Linda's actions. I was aware it was Kevin's money that had disappeared, but the full context was still unclear to me. Linda, it turned out, had taken the money without informing us, and I needed to understand why. I asked Kevin, puzzled by the situation. Kevin began to unravel the backstory. After he had reduced the credit limit on Linda's card, she started secretly borrowing money from various sources, including consumer finance cards and credit cards she had opened without our knowledge. When Kevin discovered her growing debt, he took away all her cards and withdrew cash to settle her debts directly, aiming to bypass the banking system to keep our business accounts clean and maintain trust with our partners. This was also partly a farewell gesture as we're moving abroad and won't be around to manage such issues for her, Kevin explained. I plan to handle her debts discreetly to prevent our financial records from getting complicated. A month had passed since then, and as I was busy packing for our move, Linda's frequent calls became hard to ignore. When I finally took her call, her voice was tinged with desperation. Why aren't you answering my calls? I've called so many times, she said, almost in tears. I'm sorry, Linda. I've been caught up with the move. What's going on? I asked, trying to remain calm and give her a chance to explain her side. It's not just one thing, it's everything. They're asking for payments almost every day. It's too much, Linda confessed, her voice cracking under the strain. Have you tried contacting Kevin about this? I inquired, hoping she had sought his help first. He seems to be blocking my calls. I can't get through to him at all, Mary. You're my only hope now. Please help me, she pleaded. I realized then just how complex the situation had become. Linda's financial recklessness had led her into a labyrinth of debt, and now, isolated from Kevin's assistance, she was turning to me as her last resort. As we prepared to start anew in a foreign country, the challenges of dealing with Linda's financial chaos loomed large, demanding immediate attention before we could fully focus on our new beginnings. I was taken aback by Kevin's drastic approach toward his own mother. If he had used the prepared funds to directly settle Linda's debts, this distressing situation might have been avoided. Instead, Linda was now overwhelmed with collection letters and relentless calls from finance companies and consumer lenders. It was a scene reminiscent of something from a dramatic film, one I had never expected to witness in real life. I'll talk to Kevin, but I can't guarantee what he'll do. A son should help his mother in trouble, right? Please ask him for me, Linda pleaded at the end of our conversation. However, with our impending business expansion and our financial resources already stretched thin, we couldn't afford to further assist Linda, especially given that she had misused the money meant to settle her debts. When I relayed the details of the call to Kevin upon his return home, he responded with a mixture of fatigue and resignation. I had planned to sort things out before we left, but she squandered that chance herself, he said coldly. Indeed, the money was originally earmarked to clear Linda's debts, but she had instead blown it on a lavish trip, leaving no room for excuses. As Linda's cause persisted, I followed Kevin's lead and set her number to block, although part of me wished to help her. After all, she was Kevin's mother, but there was nothing I could do if he had chosen to detach from the situation. Meanwhile, the day of our move overseas was quickly approaching, and I still had a lot to pack. Amid the chaos of packing, I discovered another troubling piece of news. Linda had resorted to selling her house to manage her debts. It turned out she had concealed even more liabilities than we knew. The total amount was so substantial that even after selling her property, she couldn't cover it all. The thought of losing the family home where Kevin had grown up was profoundly upsetting. "Hey, our family home is gone. Are you okay with that?" I asked, sensing his sadness. "How can I be okay, but there's nothing we can do," Kevin replied, his voice tinged with sorrow. Losing the house where he grew up must have felt like a great loss, akin to how I felt when I lost my parents' house early in life. In the midst of these complex feelings and the heavy task of packing, we had to come to terms with the fact that some situations were beyond our control and focus on our future. As we prepared to start anew in a different country, the bittersweet reality of losing a family home struck me deeply. I observed the situation unfolding with Kevin. Unlike my past experiences, Kevin had not only lost the tangible structure where his earliest memories were formed, but also his emotional sanctuary. All this while his mother, Linda, is still alive. It's an indescribable feeling, the mixture of loss and displacement, especially under such painful circumstances, I thought. The impact is profound and complex, far more than mere bricks and mortar. It's about losing a part of one's history and the comfort of a place to return to that no longer exists. Linda, now residing in a modest apartment, faces the daily grind of managing her debts. She works part-time, a challenging reality given her age. Employment opportunities for the elderly are not just limited, they're often physically demanding and less rewarding. This stark new reality for her is a drastic shift from her previous life, believed to be filled with unchecked spending and financial freedom. Though sympathy naturally arises seeing her struggle, it's tempered by the knowledge that her situation is the direct result of her own financial imprudence. Life teaches us that actions have consequences, and Linda's case reaffirms the harsh truth that financial responsibility is crucial at any age. Back in our new environment, the business is thriving beyond our initial expectations. The move overseas has catapulted our brand into the international spotlight, bringing in a flurry of inquiries and offers from various corners of the globe. Every new email and call brings potential for expansion and collaboration, which is incredibly exciting but also immensely demanding. The success is exhilarating, however, it envelopes our entire lives, leaving little room for anything else. Days blend into nights as we navigate time zones and cultural nuances, striving to make the most of this golden opportunity. Despite the professional achievements, our personal lives bear the weight of our relentless schedules. The dream of expanding our family seems more like a distant vision, something we hope to circle back to when the waves of immediate demand subside. Kevin, who juggles multiple roles from logistics to client management, feels this strain acutely. As partners in both life and business, we find ourselves pondering the future and our priorities, wondering how we can align our professional goals with our personal desires. As I look out of our apartment window, taking in the view of the far landscape, the neon lights blur into the night, mirroring the blur of our daily lives. It's a view filled with promise and anonymity. A stark contrast to the familiar streets we once knew. This city, vibrant and relentless, is now our home, yet it starkly contrasts with the quiet, steady life we left behind. The complexity of our new life is exciting but also daunting, filled with endless tasks and decisions that challenge us at every turn. Navigating this new chapter, I often find myself reflecting on Linda's situation and the broader implications of our familial and financial decisions. It's a continuous learning curve, understanding how deeply intertwined our choices are with the fabric of our lives. Each decision, each sacrifice, and each success shapes not just our immediate circumstances but also the legacy we leave behind. As we build this new phase of our life, we remain mindful of the delicate balance between achieving success and maintaining the relationships that define who we are beyond our business achievements.